as a police canine trainer, as a police canine officer. Why did you leave?
I loved my job. I would have done it for free. The real bottom line is it's because they don't support us anymore.
Multiple locations that have been burning in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
The chaos coming after a day of peaceful protests across the city.
I hear a gunshot, thinking that it's this guy using my gun to shoot me. I realize what's happening is the original officer is shooting at this guy, and his first round hit me in the back of my truck. One of the reasons why I wanted to be a cop, I wanted to have justice and make things right for people that were brutalized or victimized. Society started turning against officers, and you can't change by laws. People have to change their hearts.
Welcome, Steve, to our podcast.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming on. I've been wanting to get you on since before we even started the podcast. You could even say that you're one of the reasons that made me even think about starting a podcast, to have guests just like you on.
Wow, I'm humbled.
Yeah. And as the folks are going to find out, an unbelievable amount of experience, but maybe one of the most humble people on the planet. So we're going to have to try really hard to kind of squeeze the stories out of you and get you to tell us, all that's up there in the brain of yours. So anyways, thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor, and thank you for having me. I brought you a little something from my old retired department, Broward Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
A little challenge coin.
Thank you very much.
And enjoy that. Put that in your collection.
Yeah, this is awesome. I do have the collections right behind you, actually. This one says, "You can run, but you can't hide." Cave Canem. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Steve.
You're welcome.
And we also, some of the folks might be going, what the hell's going on? Well, more about this in a minute, but these are some cool products that we're going to be telling you about what a vital role these tools are in the canine industry. And the man sitting across from me is the one that's been developing them for over 20 years now?
No, well, yeah,
Getting
in
close.
a sense.
Yeah.
But we started off with something far less than that. So.
Exactly, and we'll get into that as well. And for us to get started, what I'd like to do is give a little background on you so the folks at home listening to this know exactly who you are and why you're here before us, and kind of give a little glimpse as to the stuff we're going to be talking about. So without further ado, Steve Sprouse has been in law enforcement since 1983 and a canine officer since 1988. He retired from the Broward County Sheriff's Office in 2018 as their lead patrol dog trainer. In total, he served 35 years in law enforcement, 30 years of which in canine. Steve has been an FDLE, which is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, certified canine instructor since 1993. He previously served as a USPCA regional patrol dog and detection dog judge, and since the early 90s, Steve has competed and won first-place finishes in numerous regional and national police canine events throughout his career. But, more importantly, he believes training for the streets takes priority over winning competitions. Steve worked a total of 6 police dogs throughout his career. Steve's third dog was one of 5 dogs in the nation to receive honorable mention in the AKC 2002 Law Enforcement Dog of the Year Award. Steve and his canine partners throughout his career have been involved in hundreds of canine apprehensions, many resulting in canine use of force. In 1989, Steve was shot and seriously wounded in a canine deployment and has since been involved in the importance of, quote, training for reality. He has lectured and taught numerous canine classes and seminars throughout the U.S. and has had several canine training articles published in popular police canine publications. Now, currently, Steve is the owner and founder of the Arm & Lagan Training Systems, which was developed to enhance the performance and working ability of law enforcement and military canines. And that's exactly what these products are, his Arm & Lagan products. Steve is internationally renowned for his reality-based training philosophies and has taught hundreds, if not thousands, of canine teams domestically and abroad. How'd we do?
With a lot of fluff.
A lot of fluff? No, I think this is skimming the surface, to be honest with you.
I think what's more important than a resume or what's on paper is the actual experience. And I was able to do so by the grace of God. I put all that time in. And even after my shooting, when doctors said I would never come back to work again, by the grace of God, I was able to, and had a full career, and was able to see other handlers and trainers work which gave me more experience. But it was a great journey for me. I wouldn't have traded it for the world if things didn't change a little bit. So
yeah, that's wonderful. And that is the tricky part, but we are going to get into that. But how do we document, the thousands upon thousands of hours of training, all of the deployments, all of the individual incidents? It's hard to put that on a resume, and you're right. Experience is where it really counts, and that's why you're here to tell us, 3 decades worth of not just sitting behind a desk, out there in the field grinding every day, whether it's training or real life deployments. And so, without further ado, let's start with, where did you grow up and how did you get into police work? And I'm gonna go ahead and put these down. We'll bring these out later.
Well, I grew up in North Miami, born and raised there. My parents got divorced early, which was kind of unheard of back in the 50s and 60s. But so my mom raised me she was a waitress. So I had the freedom pretty much to live on my own. Did the usual juvenile stuff, but I was kind of more of a beach bum. I was a surfer. My dad wound up moving to Southern California, so there was a couple of summers where I went out there and was able to hitchhike around and surf and have all the fun things of life when you're a kid. No worries until you get older and you have children, then all the worries begin. But so I grew up in North Miami, eventually moved to Fort Lauderdale. I was in the restaurant and bar business for a while in Fort Lauderdale. Was doing a lot of martial arts stuff back then, not the MMA stuff that's popular today, but more stand-up stuff, Chinese Kempo and Goju-Ryu. And so, and I was much beefier then. So when I was working in the bar, they put me on the door as a doorman, bartender. So I had dated a girl. They said, why don't you, get a job in the bar and become a bouncer and all this stuff. So I did. Well, I worked in Fort Lauderdale, which during the time when Fort Lauderdale was the king of spring break. So all the spring breakers from college would come to Fort Lauderdale, and the bar that I worked was one of the popular ones on the Strip in Fort Lauderdale.
What was the name of it?
One of the ones was the Big Daddy's Corporation, Playpin, Dirty Nellies. Worked at a couple different ones during my time as a bartender and doorman.
And this is before or after the movie Roadhouse? This is the image that we get,
Yeah. You look at the skinny old guy now and you think, there's no way that guy can even walk in a bar, which is probably true. And nor would I want to now. But so during that time, there was actually several police officers, Fort Lauderdale police officers, that worked the door with us, that also worked the door. That's how many fights and problems we had. Different world back then. You can handle everything and, in one stroke, and it was over with, unlike today where everybody's involved and stuff.
Everybody's got a cell phone filming the whole thing.
Everything. So, but these officers that worked there were great guys, and I started taking a liking to them, and they started liking me and my wife, who was working there at the time as well. That's how I met my wife in the bar business. And so they would, the one guy in particular who's deceased now, unfortunately, but his name was Gabe, and he would always say, hey, man, you'll love this job. I go, nah, it's too dangerous. He goes, actually, it's not as dangerous as what you're doing here, and because you've got backup and you got force and your authority and all this stuff, and he would try to talk me into it. Also, to go back a little bit in history, when I was living in Miami, my dad owned a restaurant, and all the police officers would come in there to eat for half price because he gave them half price at the time, and coffee or whatever. So I kind of grew a relationship with them there too. So when eventually I moved to Fort Lauderdale, met the officers on the Strip. And so one day I applied to that particular department, didn't make it. Applied for another department, didn't make it. And I applied for the city of Oakland Park, which was a relatively small department compared to some of the bigger ones. I think we had 130 sworn, 2 canine units. So I got hired with that department, loved it. It was just great because one of the reasons why I wanted to be a cop, believe it, as corny as it may sound, was because I hated people being victimized and I hated the bully mentality. And I wanted to, again, it sounds corny in today's day and age, especially 2024, but I wanted to have justice and make things right for people that were brutalized or victimized by bullies or predators. So I became a cop. I loved it. I loved working the street. I was proactive, go-getter. There was 2 canine guys there that I took a liking to and vice versa. one night there was a burglary at a pawn shop or something, and I remember one canine guy coming. I was on the perimeter, and he was ready to put the dog in, and he gave announcements, and this guy comes crawling out of the window that he had broke. I thought, wow, that's so cool. And look at this dog over here. He's just ready to go. And I had grown up with all big dogs. My dad, when he came back from World War II, had a boxer. Then we had shepherds and growing up in Miami. So I thought this was the coolest thing. So eventually those two police officers that were canine in Oakland Park were retiring. So I put in for it.
This is early in your career.
This is early. This is in the
like the first couple
early
of years?
80s. Right. Yeah.
Just the first few years that you're on?
Yeah, first few years.
And then if we can pause for just a minute, Oakland Park is just a smaller city outside of Fort Lauderdale.
Municipality in Broward County.
And we're talking 15-minute drive, 20, 30-minute drive to Fort Lauderdale. So it's in that South Florida area.
Yeah, like a 40, depending on traffic, 30-minute drive to North Miami.
Okay.
So it's in that metropolitan South Florida.
Was it kind of a hot spot back then?
It was very diverse back then.
I mean, it still is.
Still is. It's actually gotten
worse, huh?
Worse.
Yeah.
Not that that's...
You can say it. Yeah. It's a rough area.
Yeah. But it was then we had, kind of upper and lower areas, and there was work there for a two-man canine department.
Yeah.
Or two personnel. So anyway, those guys were getting out, and I put in for it, and I got it. So the next question was, okay, where are you going to get a dog? And the guys that were already in there had gotten their dogs from different people. There was a kennel in Miami that they were using. I don't remember the name of it. But anyway, it was way before the Metro Dade Canine and Tony Guzman era.
Right.
But so we went down there. They didn't have anything that the previous canine guys thought that would be good for me. So the trainer for Broward Sheriff's Department was a guy named Mike Clark. And he says, I got a guy in Germany that I have good contact with that I can call and see if we can get you a dog. The guy's reliable. He gets good dogs. I go, yeah, let's do it. The department paid for it, but he imported the dog in from Germany. I had to go to Miami Airport to pick him up. And this was exciting for me, man. I'm getting a dog from Germany. I'm going to be a canine. Wow, this is cool. And I go to the airport, and I go to the baggage department or wherever they had him in the warehouse, and I look in this air crate kennel, and here's this freaking giant dog looking at me like you're looking at me, and I'm thinking, wow, is this cool? And the baggage guy says, boy, he's a big one, huh? I ain't getting near him. So we got him, and then we eventually went on to canine school, which I can gladly tell you about that if you want.
Yeah, because, I mean, we will rewind back just a little bit. And what I mean is, because we talked offline before starting this podcast, you didn't have a trainer there. You didn't really I mean, there might have been two guys in the canine unit, but it was far from being like a full-on established unit with heritage and best practices and SOPs. And, I mean, you said you didn't even have regular police canine cars to put the dog in.
Well, they had canine cars, but I'll get into that story if you want. I had to build my own kennel.
That's what I mean.
And I got plywood and propped it up in the back, and they gave you the old pool car, and you got in it, and you put the kennel in, and you went.
You had to make it work.
I was happy because I was in canine. This is great. So, the training aspect of it, those two guys that were already in, they went to a private kennel to get training, which they were more protection and Schutzen type trainers, but they did their thing and it worked out. So when it was time for me to go into a school or even get knowledge of where we're going to go, it was up to really those two guys to decide. Well, it wasn't going to be the kennel route. It was going to be, well, Fort Lauderdale's putting on a school. We're going to send you there, which was no problem. I learned a lot from those guys. For those that have been around in the South Florida canine industry for a while, is a sergeant named Ryan Runnerstrom, real gruff ex-Marine guy, and a lot of compulsion in the school, a lot of bite work, and a lot of tracking. But there wasn't so much of the intricate, meticulous training that we're doing today, or that most trainers are doing today, most competent trainers, I should say. So it was decided that I'm going to go to Fort Lauderdale Canine School. And man, I didn't know my left hand from my right, and I wasn't the most coordinated person in the world. And they were on me left and right, and doing practical jokes. But it was a good school overall. They taught you how to track really well. Well, I was like the underdog, and I was the brunt of all the jokes and the criticism. Well, then we get a guy, and I won't mention the name of the department, that came in the following week because he had to go into a canine school. Oh, the only one available is Fort Lauderdale, so we're going to send you up to Fort Lauderdale. So here comes this guy, Joey, I'll call him, and he was a mess, a train wreck. So all the pressure went off of me and went on Joey. So
Thank God for Joey.
I felt a little better. Yeah, it was great getting Joey.
You tell us a little bit about your first dog. What was his name? What did he look like?
Yeah, his name was Rick. He was a big German Shepherd, and he was supposedly a Schutzen 3 at the time.
Wow.
In fact, the instructor, Sergeant Runnerstrom at Fort Lauderdale, had a really cool dog named Chico that was another German import, big head, solid. He says, man, he goes, you want to trade? He goes, I love your dog. And I go, no, because it was a long-haired Shepherd, but just big. And nobody wanted to catch him. And this will segue into our story about me getting shot. But nobody wanted to catch him. They called him the freight train because Rick.
Because he came in hard?
Yeah, he came in hard. It's like, you're taught, and if you're a boxer or a martial arts, you don't punch at the nose, you punch through it. Mm-hmm. So he was like that kind of dog. He came in and just, boom, knocked people down, and no one wanted to catch him. Well, the long story short, I guess, is that, he wasn't the dog that he was in training as he was on the street. He wasn't
on the
bad.
field, sport dog. It's a
Sport
champ.
dog.
And for those who don't know, Schutzen 3, that means, fully titled, fully trained, bite work, tracking, just does all the things and does it well. So, like a turnkey dog, you could argue, but this dog had everything going for it. You're probably thinking at the time, man, I feel bad for the bad guy that we come across with Rick.
Yeah. And he was 3 years old, so he had 3 years, and to even get a Schutzen title, you have to be a certain age.
Yeah.
So, this is going to be cool, and maybe that's why the instructor wanted him, because here he is already trained. Yeah. But what people don't realize is the baggage, the bad baggage, or the things that are unknown come with it too.
Yeah.
So, so Rick and I went into the school, and in that particular school, there wasn't a lot of muzzles. There was very little bite suit work. There was all the typical Schutzen style 45-degree angle in front of you where you target the dog. Dog comes in and bites, and you work them, and you get the out if you can. And that was the training for the most part. And at the end of the track, there would be a guy down in the gully or buried in the grass with another typical giant, 30-pound jute sleeve giving him the bite. So the conditioning in that dog from where he came from, Germany, and continuing through the canine school was conditioned to one picture or one context that the dog saw when it came to bite work. So, but that was not something that anybody thought any differently about. And even to this day, people still think that way. And they think, okay, well, this dog bites the sleeve, and we'll eventually get into a story about that, which we talked about earlier, where, when it comes to now, instead of this, you got a skinny guy like me jumping around trying to get away from the dog, and it doesn't meet the picture.
Maybe no clothes on, or who knows what, hiding in the water, hiding in weird places, not presenting his arm, and definitely not what we call the Stay Puft marshmallow suit, or what you're describing
Michelin
back then.
Man.
Those huge bite sleeves,
Yeah.
that have a certain look to them, a certain smell. So for the folks at home, when you're talking about context, we often talk about dogs see things in pictures, and the picture in this case is guy with a big sleeve on. You can bite that. And then when you remove that from the equation, the dog goes, what picture is this?
Yeah, exactly.
So they actually say dogs are a little bit autistic in the way that they learn things. And I am no expert on this, but for the folks at home, I find this interesting. Someone explained it better than me, and I'll try my best to replicate that. But if someone is autistic, they don't generalize well. And by that, you could show, let's say, an autistic child a photo of a 747 jet, right? A big plane. You say, look at this plane. And then they're like, do you know what this is? They go, I don't know what that is. And you say, well, this is a plane. You see it has wings, and it has the fuselage, and you see the shape of it. And then if you show it to them again, especially if they're really smart, they're like, yeah, that's a plane. Put that picture down, show them a picture of like an F-16 fighter jet, And they're like, what is this? They go, I have no idea what that is. Different picture.
Great analogy.
Right? And so same with dogs, it's like they just get stuck on the one picture. So but even in pet training, we have to generalize. So, and here's just one more example, and then we'll move on. But I was just doing this with one of my assistant trainers the other day. I said, watch this. We have a dog in front of us 5 feet away doing verbal sits and downs like a champ, looking at him. I said, watch this. I turn my back to the dog and I do sits and downs by voice. And I go, he's not doing it, is he? He goes, no. I said, why do you think that is? The simple picture of me turning my back is a completely different picture to the dog. So imagine now we do nothing but scenario of Stay Puft Marshmallow Suit. And then once you remove that, that's all you needed to remove. And the dog's like, I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah. And the dogs are taught, they're domesticated dogs. Humankind is not prey to them. So the domesticated dogs, they're taught most of the time not to mouth or bite your trainer or people hanging around. So it's all new. So why would I bite this guy that's now running away and not really doing anything? And it doesn't have this sleeve on or this context that you talked about. And there's plenty of stories that you can relate to that context where dogs have failed because it was a different picture for them.
Absolutely. Well, maybe let's get into one of those stories. What's the first one that comes to mind?
Oh, geez. Well, my shooting, since we're on the Rick, we could talk about that. Rick, nobody wanted to catch in school, and I told you that. And when we got out, we had a couple fines and where we were, justified to make contact, and the dog would go in and make contact, and the person would give up, and it wasn't anything, that you really were proud of him. And when I talk about biting, and when police canine people talk about biting, we don't want the general public to think that we're out there being happy about the dog biting somebody. We're not. But when it's justified, when we have reason to protect civilization, ourselves, another person, even the suspect, we want a dog to go in and bite well. And when we say well, we want the dog to go in and bite full and hard. One place, one time, to neutralize or control the suspect. That's what we want. If a dog goes in and he's not confident in biting, that's why, not to go off, but
Donis is off camera snoring.
We love
so
it.
if you hear snoring in the background, that's him snoozing over there.
Such a cool dog. But so people don't understand that when we're praising our dog, like you might see a YouTube video and the guy's biting the suspect, good boy, Fido. Well, it's not that we want to see the person get bit. We're happy that the dog is biting like he's supposed to do, and that's what we train for. We train for that bite and hold, so we neutralize the suspect. Less damage, more control, and that's what we train for. So when
I will give it something that I think relates.
Okay.
If it's time to deploy a taser, we don't want the taser to maybe half go off. It goes out and it touches the guy, but it doesn't do anything. We want the taser to work and work fully. Make contact, incapacitate the person, get the guy in cuffs, and it's the end of story. And there's been a lot of shootings that have happened as a result of tasers failing to fully deploy or really make proper contact, hit the skin, and actually get the subject to be incapacitated. And man, when those tasers don't work, you're kind of out of options. Good. Especially if you got a guy with a knife or something and they're going to these tasers and it hits them and they're like, so same thing, if we send a dog out and the dog doesn't really engage or really bite and really give 100% effort, you can run into a really bad scenario there as well.
Great analogy. Yeah, perfect.
So as you were saying?
So that's what we want to train for minimum damage. And we can get into a story we talked about too, where we did have that, where we had multiple punctures, but no good neutralization of the suspect, and it was much worse all around. So when I deployed Rick, the first couple times it was kind of weak bites and different scenarios. A lot of it was robbers that were in the woods that had bailed out of a car. One was a couple burglars in a business, and we were calling them down. The whole shelf collapsed when they were coming down, and then one guy started to get up and run and sent the dog, and it was just kind of a raking. When we say raking or nipping, it's just the dog's not making a good contact. He's not holding. He's doing this because he can't get to the surface that he wants to bite or the limb.
And we think of a rake raking up leaves, like it's just
off,
kind of surface of the skin scraping, and doesn't actually have, say, like full control of. Let's say it's biting an arm. It'd be great to get at least one arm out of the equation when you're in a fight with someone, especially if it's their dominant arm. But hey, get a leg, get an arm, get a something. In fact, when police officers go to take down a subject, it's usually what we're doing. First thing we're going for, get a hold of that wrist. And then if there's a third or fourth officer, grab a leg. Like if we can just grab those limbs, we're in a better place. But if the police dog's going in and just multiple kind of touching the guy with basically touching them with their teeth and then pulling back, but not actually getting a hold, we're not getting the job done the way we would like. And so you're describing that's kind of what Rick's first few bites were like.
Yeah, and you want that full mouth bite. You want the molars to sink in because there's much more pressure in the masticatory muscles or the jaw muscles of the dog to clamp down and have that. If I grab you like this and you pull
with
away,
the tip of your fingers.
And now if I grab you like this,
right.
It's a much more firm. So that's what we strive for. And not only, I know I'm going off, that's when I talk about canine, that's what I do.
But this is what we're here for.
But another thing that's important, as your analogy was saying, you try to go for an arm bar, but that may not work. Well, dogs should be taught to bite legs as well and bite them well, not just go in and nip the kneecap. But anyway, back to Rick. So I came to work about 8 o'clock at night during that time. And I would always come to work and go into, we had our own dispatch center in Oakland Park at the time. And it was like a family at that time in the department. So I go in and talk to the 2 dispatch ladies, girls, whatever you want to call them, and we'd shoot the breeze a little bit. We might have a coffee. I would always look at the briefing log when I went in. That was the purpose of going into dispatch, to look at the briefing log, because I didn't go to briefing because canine was on a little bit of an offshoot schedule. So I went in and talked to the girls in dispatch, and they were getting a phone call. And back then it was cool because the call taker would be right next to the dispatcher and they could communicate. You didn't have to go through computers and systems. And the calls went out quick, quick, quick. And so she said, the girl on the phone says, hey, we're getting another robbery, 41 they called it, another robbery at this particular convenience store. And the dispatcher starts to put it out. And she says to the dispatcher, the phone call taker, this guy's been hitting us all afternoon and evening, same guy, because they had a description of the car, had a temp tag in the back window. It gave a description of the suspect, armed, blah, blah, blah. So they dispatch a unit to the area. I, being kind of a relatively new canine guy, and this is my job, and gung-ho, I run out the back door, get in my car, and I start heading to where the last crime scene was, or the last robbery. Well, as I'm en route, I hear another officer say, I believe I'm behind the vehicle eastbound on 38th Street. And I may not be saying the exact streets and all that, but he says, I'm behind the vehicle eastbound on 38th Street. Well, I'm not far from there. So I start heading that way. He's going eastbound, I'm going westbound to intersect. He says, I'm behind that vehicle. So I can see him about, I'm guessing, a quarter of a mile away behind the guy. And now as I'm approaching, there's a 7-Eleven right here between where the original cop is, police officer, and where I am. Well, I see the suspect car pull into the parking lot of 7-Eleven. I lose sight of him. The officer that was following him pulls into the 7-Eleven. I lose sight of him. I pull into the 7-Eleven. I see the officer maybe 50, 60 feet away from the suspect, who's now parked almost on the side of the 7-Eleven. He's telling him something, ordering him to do something. And they're having words exchanged. But I can't hear. I'm just getting there, driving in, trying to see what's going on. When I get out of my car to take a position, the bad guy starts charging the officer that's over here, running at him. So now my particular thought process was, okay, now I'm going to get the dog and send him. Well, for some reason, because again, when you're a new canine guy, you just want to do canine stuff, and we didn't have the tactics and the safety as officers do nowadays.
Well, they should anyways, but
yeah,
more on that later.
They should anyway.
Yeah.
So I made a lot of tactical errors, no doubt, and I admit to all my issues. I got no problem about that. I am what I am, But so I grab the dog by the harness and I start to send him. Well, the guy veers off from the police officer that was over here and starts running in more of a southerly direction between like a strip mall. So I'm still thinking, I got to send the dog. But now he crosses a relatively moderate busy street. So I don't want to let the dog go and get hit by a car. So I run with him on the harness. Now I got a clear path. The guy's running down the parking lot of the strip mall. Got a clear path to send the dog. I send him. Dog goes running down. This is Rick, the freight train in canine school.
Here he goes.
Yeah, there he goes, man. And he gets by the suspect and he goes.
He's running alongside him.
He's running alongside of him.
Looking at him.
And
what's he looking for?
He's looking for a sleeve. So I'm thinking, we were taught, right or wrong, this is what we were taught, this is what I did, because you were taught to help the dog, because this is all new to him. You were taught. So whether the dog was there or not, whether I'm helping him or not, I got to get this guy subdued. So because he was known to be armed, I was running with my gun originally as the dog's running after him. So when I catch up to him, I want to get him on the ground for safety reasons, and he's under arrest, obviously, and I want to holster my gun. Well, we had just gotten the 40, well, actually, I got to back up in the story. I had my 45 for a while, and the holster had become, back those days, you had one step to getting your gun out, and that was the button that you flipped. My holster had become so old that the flap that held the gun in place when it was supposed to be in the holster had worn in this position instead of this position. So when blocking the entrance of the gun when I went to reholster. So I reholstered the gun, but it didn't go all the way in. So I went to grab the guy and sweep him, on the ground.
And meanwhile, Rick is just...
I don't know what Rick's doing. I really don't.
He's not really involved, though.
He's there.
He's around, but he's not biting.
But he might have been biting, because I'll tell you when we get done, or at the end of the story. He might have been biting, but there was definitely confusion on his part. So I go to flip him or sweep him to the ground. The gun goes whoop, right in front of the bad guy. So I've got the guy like this, trying to, get him on. He goes down. I see him go down, grab the gun. I'm still not really worried. This is not an ego thing. I'm not worried at this point. I'm not scared. Grabs the gun, comes around this way, wheeling it around. And this is a millisecond, all of this. So my thought was, I'm going for that wrist, arm, whatever, and get control. And this was a pretty stout dude. And as I go for that position, I hear a gunshot, thinking that it's this guy using my gun to shoot me. And my arm goes completely numb, I couldn't do anything with it. So at that point, 1 second before that, I was in control. Now I got no left arm. It ain't doing anything. And I realize what's happening is the original officer is shooting at this guy, and his first round hit me in the back of my truck. Here. No. And that's a story of, friendly fire. And that's not a macho story. And no, it isn't. It isn't a macho story, and it is friendly fire. But this is what happens in war, in police, whatever. So I realize now that I still don't realize that his round got me, the officers. I think it's the bad guy.
Yeah.
In fact, even after statements, when I was in the hospital, my statement was, and then he shot me. And witnesses on the scene said, he shot the cop. And so my realization was that now the bad guy's being shot. I got to go to the ground and let him shoot this guy. Well, I go to the ground, and I now see Rick attached to his groin. I'm like, I'm shot, and I'm going, oh yeah.
So he's biting the bad guy.
He's biting the bad guy
area?
in the upper thigh groin area. So now I'm happy, even though I'm just shot, bleeding on the ground. So people always ask, well, what was it like? What was the pain? I felt no pain until everything stopped. And when everything stopped, it felt like me putting my arm on a cement slab and somebody taking a sledgehammer and going, bam. The pain was just tremendous. Officers that had showed up on the scene said, your arm looked like a chicken wing with just the bone cracked and just the meat. In fact, that's what it was. It shattered the humerus bone, tore the radial nerve which wound up half of it here and half of it here. And this is where the bullet. So I shattered humerus bone, severed radial nerve. Doctors. So any wind up was, they got the guy in custody. I got Rick, the other canine handler that was working, Joe Kessling, came to the scene. And it's funny because he shows up on the scene and he's got a sleeve ready to take Rick. I go, Joe, just take the leash and put him in the car, because I'm laying on the ground bleeding. So anyway,
how'd you get Rick off the bite? If you remember,
I think I just grabbed him or something. I think I just said out or pulled him back, and he came back. I don't know the details of that, but I think that's kind of the way it was.
And then as far as the bad guy, he had the gun. It looks like he was about to shoot you.
Yeah, I don't fault the backup officer at all.
Right, but what kept the bad guy from shooting or because he had the gun in his hand? Rick ends up biting him in the groin. But did he, at some point, throw the gun away, or? The gun,
well, you asked me that question, and you say, what kept him from shooting me? I give the glory to God, because I think that's, everybody has a plan in life, and things are not accidental all the time. So, but anyway, it was weird, because when the investigators said that we found your gun with the safety on, do you carry your gun with the safety on? I go, never. So that's weird. Either the guy thought that was kicking it back into fire, or the safety came on during the struggle, or who knows. But either way, I'm glad, because if I would have got hit, this was a 9mm. If I would have got hit with the 45 at that range, who knows? I might not have an arm here. So by the grace of God, I do. But doctors said I would never come back to work again. Again, giving God the glory and my self-determination. I love my job so much. I go, I'm going to come back to work, whatever it takes. I went through a lot of therapy. And I also said, I'm going to come back to work, and this dog, Rick, is going to engage like he's supposed to.
Because that's truly your story. Or it's the linchpin to decades of your work. And I just don't want to gloss over it. You got shot because Canine Rick didn't do what you had trained him to do. Had he ran up to this guy and bit him, you wouldn't have got shot. You should have took this guy down, but instead he's looking for equipment. He's thinking he's on a competition field going, hey, Dad, where's the sleeve I'm supposed to buy? It would have been a very different ending, in my opinion, if Rick had bit the guy. And so just to summarize a different way, the dog's failure to engage nearly cost you your life.
Yes, but you can also look at it, what you say is true, but you can also look at it that it gave me a passion to try to help others with that same problem. And that was in 1980s that happened to me. But I watch YouTube videos all the time in 2024, which is what we're in, still happening. And it just tears me apart, because why is this still happening? And we could go on forever about why it's still happening, but
But 30 years later, we still have police dogs failing to engage, which is costing officers potentially their life, or officers getting injured, and it's frustrating because, man, you think we've come a long way, and well, anyways, that's become your life's passion, to make sure that this never happens to another police officer. Well, to the best of your ability.
To the best of my ability, and that's my ability only goes so far. But you said a key thing. You said we trained Rick to go and bite the bad guy. We thought we were training Rick to go and bite the bad guy, and the instructor there was great for what he did, but there was never that bridge between training and reality. And to give it a little bit of credit, the dogs were different back then. A lot of the dogs we got from Europe were much more defense orientated, a little more powerful mentally. They weren't so prey driven. There was both, but it was a little different dog back then, and I think
better or for worse?
I think it depends how you look at it. For better in some ways, in other ways not better. I mean, the more
you guys got by with you made it work. Lots of bites. And
lots of justified bites.
Yeah. But what I mean is, like, you didn't have arm and leg products back then.
No, and we may have not needed arm and leg products so much back then. We needed more muzzle. We needed more, realism training that wasn't there. Every track can end with this and a jute sleeve. But I think one of the other reasons why, whether it be arm and leg or some other person making it, I think one reason why it's so important is because we do have a different dog. We have a different dog that's bred more for socialization, more for prey. So these products do help. It's not the only tool in the toolbox. It's not the magic bullet that's going to make your dog bite. It's just another tool in the toolbox to help transition the dog from training to reality. And the type of dog, and I'm generalizing, I'm not saying all, but a lot of the dogs that we get today are much more prey, much more domesticated, so these products help the dog see the picture that they will see on the street, not the picture that they see on the training field. And we could talk forever on the pictures that we see on the training field. We talked about that a little bit before we started.
Absolutely.
Excuse me.
Well, I think what we'll do is we're going to take a short break, and we come back. We're going to talk exactly about what we're seeing on the training field and also how that's affecting officers on the street.
Awesome.
We'll be back in a minute. This podcast is brought to you by coffee. It's exactly what's needed to make this podcast happen. Now, the only way that I can afford to buy this coffee is if you help out by not only like, sharing, and subscribing, but I don't know if you know this or not, this podcast is fully funded by yours truly, fueled by coffee. And the only way that we're able to afford this amazing set and pay Jeremy, who's behind the camera right there, is helping us out with our online dog training platform. That's DIYcanine.com. Whether you have a dog or puppy, or you know someone that has a dog or puppy, guaranteed they're not as well behaved as they could or should be. And that's what we specialize in. Industry-leading courses, helping you out no matter where you are in the world, no matter how old your dog is, what issues you're dealing with, no matter what your level of training or experience, we are here to help you train your dog or puppy from zero to hero. Absolutely guaranteed to help you get across the finish line. We have a 30-day money-back guarantee on all of our courses because they simply are the best and they are guaranteed to work as long as you put in a little bit of effort. Dog ain't gonna train itself. We already know that. Anyways, if you want to help support this channel, check us out, American Standard Dog Training, and again, DIYcanine.com, where we help you train your dog from the comfort of your home to be the best that it can be. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the podcast. All right, so we're back. We have a few more stories coming your way. Some really incredible stories. And this is, a lot of it's going to maybe come across like we're just talking shit. It's not that. It's, we've made mistakes in the past, and we hope that by telling and sharing these stories, police officers and canine handlers today can learn from our mistakes and mistakes of the past. Yet, if we've already mentioned, we'll probably say it, keep saying it, is some of these mistakes are still repeating themselves today, which is, it's just, there's no need for that. But before we go too deep down that path, tell us about the red hats.
Well, training has changed a lot. I was telling you earlier that when I first started, we had two major trainers in the area, and those were the go-to guys. Well, now, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement offered a canine instructor course, probably actually in the mid-'90s. I'm sure your dad was involved in that, and many, many good handlers and trainers. And so now everybody wanted to be a canine instructor, canine trainer. So the different bigger agencies would put on canine instructor courses, which was a week or 2 weeks back then. I don't really remember. And they would teach you different methods on how to create a particular behavior from the dog. But it was a lot of methods, not much principles on how dogs learn, but more the methods. So I went to the canine instructor course and I got my certificate and I thought now I'm a trainer. But experience is what makes you a trainer, and problem solving makes you a trainer, not a piece of paper. So I went to the canine instructor course, got my piece of paper, and now I'm a canine instructor. So when I was with Oakland Park, we trained with some of the smaller agencies, Pompano Beach, and I was the instructor of that group. So I thought I knew what I knew back then. When I look back, I didn't know much of anything when it comes to the meticulousness of dog training. So I lost my train of thought there. Bring me back. Oh, the red hats. Yeah. So between that time and now, everybody's going to instructor canine schools and they're becoming instructors. But they haven't had very little road experience with their dog. They haven't done much real training. Well, back in the 90s, Palm Beach County was putting on a canine instructor course. So Sergeant Bob Anderson, I've probably heard of him, was the trainer and sergeant of Palm Beach County at the time. Learned a lot of things from Bob Anderson in my early career. I want to give him credit for that. He had a lot of methods in his toolbox. Well, he put on a canine instructor course, and he asked me, hey, you want to come up and help me with the canine instructor course? I said, sure. So I knew a couple of the other guys that were up in Palm Beach County is north of us. I knew some other canine guys that had been in canine a while. And one of the guys that I knew that was in canine was in the canine instructor course. I knew his experience, I knew his knowledge and everything else, but now he's going to go and get his certificate in the canine instructor course. So we go through the 40 hours. I was there to help, and they had instructors coming in, and now is the last day. And they're giving out the canine instructor certificates to everybody in the class. Well, Sergeant Anderson decides, well, I'm going to give them a Cracker Jacks toy in their certificate and give them a red hat that says canine instructor on it. Wow, all the guys were all cool about that. And there was this big, kind of like a MAGA hat, but it said canine instructor on it. And so he goes, yeah, and next week we're going to do some training. We're going to finish up the canine, we're going to do some more training for some other guys. So I go up to help him out the next week, and this particular handler that I knew that went to the canine instructor course is now wearing his red canine instructor hat. And he's ordering everybody around and tell them, no, you got to do this for that sit to correct that sit problem. And no, you got to do this for that. But he knew no more than he knew the week before he got his certificate, and now that he's wearing his red hat with his certificate. And that kind of is what happens a lot, even to this day. And it's sad, and give people credit for getting their canine certificate. I'm not knocking those, and I'm not making fun of anybody at all. But people have to realize that because you get a canine instructor, whether you get it, through a course or you watch a YouTube video, you have deficiencies because you don't have the experience. You don't have the hands-on. You have dog after dog, and you're in your training, and you get that experience. So the moral of the story is people go to a canine instructor course and they go, okay, to get the dog to down, I got to use a hot dog. I got to lure him with a hot dog. And when he goes down, he gets his reward or his marker or whatever. And that's how I'm going to train the down. But then 6 weeks later, they're saying down, and the dog ain't going down, and he doesn't want a hot dog. And they don't know, what am I doing wrong? Why isn't this working? Well, that dog may not be motivated by food, and he's got all positive reinforcement that he doesn't necessarily care about, and there's no consequences for him not going down. Mm-hmm. So there's no positive punishment, negative reinforcement, positive, all the quadrants of, of the how we train dogs, right. The principles.
So I think I'll say it a different way too, is to summarize at least, I can't get someone off the street and train them to train pet dogs in 2 or 3 weeks. We're not even close.
That's right.
It could take, I was talking with a group of trainers the other day on the phone. I'm like, how long do you think it would take to train someone if they were training with you all day, every day? They're like, minimum 3 to 4 months, probably closer to 6 months before they're even somewhat qualified to train a pet dog. And now we have police canine trainers going to a 40, maybe 80-hour school. So 1 or 2 weeks, and somehow they're God's gift to canine. And it's just not how it goes. You're red hat or not, paperwork or not, there is no way on earth you're going to learn how to train police dogs to be the best that they can be with a 1 week or 2 week trainer school. And by the way, not all trainer schools are created equal. There's better
No,
ones,
you're
there's
absolutely right.
great ones, there's not so good ones. And so yeah, but experience, it's hard to replicate, or you can't replicate or duplicate experience. You just got to be out there doing it. And so, well, that's why you're here. You know, you bring in 30 years worth.
Well, people mean well when they get their certificate, and they
Sure.
mean well by trying to use a hot dog lure for 6 weeks.
Sure.
But don't be married to the methods. Dogs learn now the same way they did in the 1800s. The methods are different, but the principle is still the same: positive and negative reinforcement. So, that's what they have to understand. Okay, this isn't working. What is going to motivate the dog? What is going to make them do it? And over repetition and timing. Timing's another thing. You watch things on YouTube. You watch, you go to canine school, but you're missing the timing. You're missing
Timing is everything.
Timing is everything, and body language. I don't know how far you want me to get off track here, but when we would do obedience schools, or when we would do canine schools, and we would do the obedience phase, the handlers would be using the leash, giving corrections, and then when the dog was in the right position, rewarding them. My thing was, okay, when we're ready to take him off lead to prove him how he is off lead, for 2 or 3 sessions, act like you're taking him off lead, but don't. So the dog gets into the body language. And when you're walking, you walk the same way. You have your toy over here, here. So the dog never knows what to expect by your body language. He's not always reading the body language. So in obedience, we'd say, okay, take him off lead, but hold the lead, pretend like you're holding the lead. Don't change your body language. When you make a right turn, give him that slack like you're ready to give him the correction, and he should be right with you because he's already seen your body language. And this is the body language I get when I'm ready to get a correction. Sure. I better get right there on that left turn, right turn, whatever it is. So important stuff. And you can't get experience unless you get out there and do it. So it's got to start with a red hat somewhere.
So tell us then a story of where maybe the red hat training failed someone in particular.
I don't know if it was really red hat training, but training in general back in the day. Back when I told you we trained with other smaller agencies and I was the so-called instructor, a handler came to me, great handler, would work for hours searching for somebody, never gave up, super motivated. His dog was one of the best trackers I ever seen, and we tracked a lot back then as opposed to area search and stuff. But great handler, good dog, good tracker. He came to me one day in training. So we trained in a real pristine area, cut grass, quiet, fenced off on the training field. So he came, he says, hey, my dog's not biting on the street like we want him to do. He's like biting clothes and raking and everything else. So me having my red hat at the time, red hat trainer, I said, oh, we'll bring him out on the field. So he brings it.
Is this before or after your incident with Rick?
This was after my incident with Rick. So I said, bring him out on the field. I said, let me take a look at him. So I put on a sleeve and I go, okay, send him. Nothing going on. It's quiet. He sends him, goes, whatever his command was, pock him. Pocks him, comes in hard. I work him a little bit. He's got a nice full mouth. I'm trying to read the dog, while he's on the bite. I go, I don't know. I'm not going to mention his name. I said, I'll call him Jim. I don't know, Jim. It seems okay to me. Shed the sleeve, and off we go. The following week, and this was during in-service training, which is once a week. Everybody's already certified. So the following week, we're doing in-service training, and we're all doing some exercise, and all of a sudden, that particular department gets a call. It was Pompano Beach. They get a call, and Pompano Beach, don't misunderstand that city name. It has some really crappy areas. So they get a call of a guy that had committed several burglaries, and they spotted him, and the chase was on, and they lost him. The area they lost him in was between the intercoastal and the ocean. So there was a lot of duplexes, temporary rentals, beach-style apartment complexes, etc., in that area. So we all jump in our cars and we're going. We're going to go find this guy that the police officers had lost. We get there. The wind's blowing. You saw the movie Halloween or any scary movie, and it's dark and the trees are blowing. There's shadows everywhere. The helicopter didn't have infrared or any kind of night vision at the time. They had what they called the night sun. So that this giant counter-power spotlight that they would shine, and they did just shine it randomly. They tried to follow you around while you're on the ground. Yeah, it was a different era, so we're tracking, and the dog's got a track. We're the last place the guy was seen. The dog's tracking, and we're going around corners, through backyards, around apartment complexes for at least 15, 20 minutes, and the guy's on the run. He ain't stopping. So we're working it, and while we're working it, the wind's blowing, the radio's crackling, the helicopter's up. Can't even hear ourselves, our backup, because we don't have the earpieces back then. It was total craziness. And the night sun is making these, every time it hit us or a tree, it would, like a monster movie with the trees coming over you, big shadows. So it was totally different than what we experienced the week before. When I said, go get him, let me see the bite.
Daytime,
and
freshly mowed grass, no distractions.
The sleeve, that picture, that pristine picture. So now we're out there in the real world, and it's like Halloween movie, and everybody, the radio's crackling. He's running this way and running that way, and the handler, I forgot what I named him, but Jim is tracking, and he's that's his motivation to find this guy. So we finally get in the back end of a triplex, and there's this giant aluminum shed, probably like as big as double the big of an average bathroom, probably triple, and the doors are closed, and the dog working the odor at the outside of the shed. So we know somebody's in there, and we highly believe it's a suspect, and the dog's working it hard. So the handler, Jim, says, you better come out of there. We're sending the dog. And this guy, I think, was known to be armed. I'm not sure. But you better come out of there. We're sending the dog. Nothing. Again, he gives more announcements. Finally, Jim opens the door. And when he opens the door, we can see the entire shed filled with inflatable rafts, inner tubes that you would use in a pool or a beach. And the shed is just full of them. There's a little bit of space between us and the inflatable devices, and we're still kind of on the outside of the doors. Well, the dog's working it hard. Well, now the handler gets all panicky, and he goes, we can't see the guy. The dog can't see the guy, but the dog's working wall to wall. And he goes, Stellan. And the dog's like,
freaking out.
What am I Stellan?
Yeah.
Finally, we see a little bit of the guy's shoe or something. Now the handler, his eyes get to, and now he says to the dog, Stellan. And the dog still doesn't see it. The dog can't, just because we see his shoe, the dog's working odor, not sight. And so the handler now throws some of the rafts around and pushes the dog into the engagement. Well, what do you think the dog did?
Backed out.
He
goes, what are you trying to do?
And you know what? A light bulb went on in this guy's head and said, there's the difference between last week when I said nothing wrong with him and this week when I said, wow, totally out of context, total different picture.
On the field, the dog looks strong, confident, biting hard, no hesitation, ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Remove the sleeve, remove the training field, add in all this other ingredients. Yeah, stress. The handler probably, and we talk about this a lot, there's a big difference between on the field, he might have said, Stellan. In the shed, he's like, Stellan. And the dog's like, are you yelling at me? What did I do wrong? What do you want me to do? You want to bite the inflatable? This is freaky. And then trying to force the dog on the bite. And then that opposition reflex kicks in and the dog goes, man, you pushing me forward. I'm just going to back out. I'm going to back out of here. And so I'm assuming no engagement.
No, it was what we would call raking or a tiny puncture or nips. Yeah. And so that light bulb came on and that was like, okay, well, we're lacking that transition between training and reality. Listen, the handler was great. The dog was great, and it wasn't anybody's fault. It wasn't the dog's fault.
Right,
I've seen handlers get pissed. There was a YouTube video that I just saw a month ago where a handler got all frustrated because his dog, and I get it. I've gotten frustrated. You've gotten frustrated.
What you're talking about.
But yeah.
They bit didn't engage on the running suspect, but then kind of bit the handler.
You could tell the handler was totally frustrated. It's not the handler's fault. It's not the dog's fault. It's just that lack of training, and administrations don't add to that. They don't know anything about canine. Okay, well, you're going to go to this school, and no, you're only going to go to a 2-week school, and no, we're short on the road. You're going to go to this guy's school, and then you're on your own. This is why we're still
what's
having...
faster, what's cheaper, what supposedly, quote, gets the dog on the street the fastest. Where can you go to just, we've always dealt with that. We still deal with that. Not every agency has this problem. No. There's many agencies out there, well, maybe not say many. There's definitely a few agencies out there that are like, however much time you need, you just let us know when the dog's ready. And especially now that we're transitioning into where we're not getting 2- and 3-year-old dogs that are fully trained. We're getting these green dogs, and they want us to take a 9-month-old, maybe 12-month-old dog, and somehow 3-4 months later, it's supposed to be ready for anything the street could throw at it. It's just not the case. And we just need more time. There's no such thing as just the more time we can get, the better. But agencies don't allow for that. Budgets don't allow for that. So we just heard of a situation, I can't say names or anything, but a handler went to a school, and when the handler was out of that school, the new trainer that's now taking over that training of that dog is like, I don't understand what they just did the last 3 or 4 months. This dog is far from ready for anything. And it's just sad. So they're starting all over from scratch. And trust me when I tell you, the agency who's over that handler is like, let's go. When are you going to be on the street? Calls are holding.
Well, that was an analogy I gave you about the hot dog thing. That was the same thing. A guy called me and says, hey, we've been in the school this long, and this is the only progress we've gotten. And it's kind of the same, we're in the same topic here, and then administrators wonder why the canine program doesn't fails, or it's not working, or why the dog doesn't catch anybody, or you gotta go back to genetics and training and handler decisions. Just there's so much to the puzzle.
Yeah. Well, tell us about another incident involving a helicopter.
Which one? No. Again, context, training, and you never know what dogs are going to do. They're animals, and you can have the best training, and you think you cover all the bases, but sometimes you don't. So we were doing a USPCA trials down in South Florida, and we wanted to put on a demo in a stadium where back in the 80s and 90s, you really had a lot of public support for law enforcement, canine. So we got a huge baseball stadium where the Orioles used to practice baseball and have preseason games, whatever they call it in baseball, preseason. I don't know.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
But
whatever.
you have this field available to you. We're going to be hundreds or thousands of people coming to see the show.
Yeah, so we want to put on a
show.
We want to put a big show. So our idea was, me and this other agency handler, we were going to get the county to approve us using the helicopter in this demo, which they did. And we were going to put 2 dogs in the helicopter with the doors open. And when we landed, we were going to apprehend a bunch of armed robbers that were shooting from a car. So the plan was land the helicopter in the middle of the crowded stadium, bail out with our dogs, and go after the decoys. So we were practicing for it. So we did the normal stuff that we should. Let's go in without it being up. Let's go in one dog at a time, see how they react to everything about the helicopter, the rotors, the door being open. Did that, gradually went to where one dog at a time would go in the helicopter with the doors open, and each handler went with their dog. And I went up with mine and check, everything's good, no problem. We're good with the open doors at night and all that. The other handler went up, check, no problem. Back then, so different than now, because I've been in helicopters with dogs since then. There was no D-rings, there was no carabiners, there was no hookup, there was no safety harness, nothing.
Just hold on to your dog.
Yeah, pretty much. You're in your seatbelt or harness, but that was it, and you hold on to your dog. So don't remember what I had my dog in, but he had his dog in a choker, a harness, and a collar. So we each did our thing, our own practice, went up, doors open, all the dogs were fine. So we went up for one more final. this was not during the show or anything. This was pre-training for the show. Needless to say, we never did the helicopter in the show for what I'm about to tell you. So we go up for pre-training, and we got both dogs in the helicopter now. We go up, everything's fine. For some reason or another, the helicopter made a bank, and this was a Malinois. And keep in mind that back in the early 90s and 80s, there wasn't as many Malinois as there are now, and they were a little bit more, we didn't have the knowledge that we have now about them. And a lot of people were a little more fearful or cautious with them back then. So even handlers that had their own Malinois were still, oh, am I going to get bit? So we're in the helicopter makes a bank, and this particular Malinois, I don't know what happened, but he freaked out with the darkness below. I mean, when the helicopter made the bank, it was just pitch black. Freaked out. So we were told, we're responsible for your dog and nothing else. You maintain your dog in this little square. The pilot does his thing. We each have our own square. He's on one side, I'm on the other. Pilot's in front of me. So as he makes the bank, the dog weirds out, goes into complete avoidance, starts backing up towards me in front of my dog. So I've got my dog tight because I could see this is not going well. Dog's backing up. He's got him by the collar. No more collar on the dog.
He slipped out of the collar?
Slipped out of the collar. Now he grabs another thing. Slips out of the choke. Now he's grabbing the harness. And the dog's gradually, inch by inch, going in front of me. I'm watching this whole, it was like slow motion. I'm watching this whole thing. I'm communicating with the pilot, whatever you say in an emergency in a helicopter. I don't remember what it was, but go down.
Because this dog's about to fall out of the helicopter.
This dog's about to fall out of that. And the pilot, just a note, the pilot didn't like dogs anyway.
We got a loose dog
I don't know
in the back.
why this happened. So the dog's inching, and I see, literally, this is not an exaggeration, literally his first back foot is on the edge of dropping off. I go, this ain't going to happen. So I take mine with one hand and his on the scruff, and I don't care. If I get bit, I get bit. I'm saving this dog's life.
Yeah. So
I grab him, and when I grab him, thank God, he kind of comes in a little bit, but his back end twists around and knocks into the pilot.
Oh my God.
So the pilot's freaking out. So he's going down as fast as he can. He went down so fast that we came down and the skids hit, boom, boom, and it broke the tail of the helicopter. Everybody was fine, thank God, literally. But it was a big investigation. No more dogs in the helicopters. Since that's changed because, the policies and the safety considerations are met now. But funny story. And it's a fun thing to look back. But again, we did everything we could, but something weirded out that dog. Dogs are dogs. I used to had one of I think it was my third dog. Great, he'd find everybody, a great dog. But you came up to a seawall. He wasn't afraid of water, but you came up to a seawall where the black water was down
depth.
there.
Yeah.
That depth, he would back out. And, you try to fix it the best you can, but how much of it is genetics? How much of it is ingrained?
There's just certain things a lot of dogs have issues with. Black holes, they have, I'm no vet by any means, but I've always been told they have horrible depth perception. So when they look maybe downstairs or look off a cliff or an elevator shaft or sometimes stairs where there's holes in the stairs, like you can see through the stairs, it weirds them out. They can't quite understand what's happening there. Slippery floors, these typical things that a lot of dogs, even the most hard, badass police dogs, you just never know what that one thing would be that freaks them out.
Yeah, and handlers get so upset about that, and I don't blame them. But you figure handlers are a personality. A lot of them are macho guys, and they want that dog. Just understand the dog. Don't take it out on the dog. It's not his fault. And when we get dogs from Europe, and I don't want to go off track here, but when we get dogs from Europe or wherever we get them, we don't know what they come with. We have an idea. Let's go back to Rick. We know that he had 3, 4, or 5 years of Schutzen training, which is one regiment, one picture that he sees. And then he comes here, and now I want to get him to transition to the street. with whatever device I use, that's all ingrained. And a good example I like to use is we had our kitchen remodeled a few years back. So for when my boys were growing up, we had the same kitchen. And when they left, growing up and left the house, we got our kitchen remodeled. So the silverware utensil drawer was always to the left of the sink. So for 20 years, when I got a spoon for whatever I was eating in the morning, I'd go to the silverware drawer on the left. Habit, conditioning, repetition. So we got our kitchen remodeled, and now they put the silverware drawer behind me, where if I was at the sink, no more drawer here, behind me. You know how long it took me to stop going to that drawer?
Months,
a year.
A year.
And anytime I was stressful in a hurry, I didn't go to that and go back to this one. So that's dogs. So we can do all the training in the world, but when stress happens or when conditions aren't so pristine or controlled, what are they going to go back to? The foundation, what they learned. So conditioning, repetition.
Absolutely. So I know there's at least one more story to discuss, lessons learned.
Well, my third dog, the same dog I was just talking about, the one about seawalls.
What's his name?
Andor.
Andor.
So when we first got Andor,
Want to describe him real quick? For the folks
stocky, feisty, short but thick German Shepherd. He actually belonged to a trainer that couldn't handle him. So when I was looking for a dog, they thought, well, we'll take him. Went to another canine school with him, which was Metro Dade, Miami-Dade. I want to give kudos. Norm Nardi was a trainer back with Miami-Dade County. I learned a tremendous amount. He's recently deceased last year, but many people all over South Florida and the Northeast know about Norm Nardi. Great guy. So I don't know why I brought his name up, but anyway, Andor. We got Andor, went through the Norm school, and I brought Andor home the first time I had him, and his kennel or sleep area was in my wife's laundry room or our laundry room. And so that's where he stayed. So he was a little feisty. It wasn't vicious, but feisty. You would get, if you were a stranger and you got near him, you'd hear that growling and he'd kind of give you the eye. I'm not going to bite you, but don't push it. So every time Sandy, my wife, would go into the laundry room when he was there, if I was sleeping or off or before our school started, he would kind of go off towards the door of the laundry room on the other side to get away from her, but he'd eye her and he'd go, she'd come in the house. You got to get rid of this dog. This dog, you need to find another place for this dog. And this went on for months. Actually, when he went on the road and I had him for however many years I had him, he was still like that. But over time, they bonded a little bit. So she became close to Andor, and even when I was sleeping her off, Andor was okay with her. She'd feed him and everything. So Andor had some issues where he'd go into seizures. He got one on our last search. He was on these guys for about 45 minutes, and he just went down in the street screaming because he had a seizure, so we had to take him off the road. So we took him off the road. He retired. I got another dog. So Andor's now is Sandy's sort of pet. Mm-hmm. So the first night I went out with the new dog, and Andor's with Sandy. I put the new dog in Andor's old laundry room, and the new dog is up on the bed with Sandy as I come walking in the door. I look in the bedroom, and Andor's up on the bed with Sandy. She goes, Andor looks at me in the eye and goes, Sandy
You're the
goes,
bad guy now.
Good boy, Andor. So that made Sandy's day.
Yeah, that's great. So he finally bonded with her and was like,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah. Stupid, funny story, but we like it at the house. We talk about it.
Yeah. So tell us about maybe an incident at the lumberyard.
The lumberyard was a guy who was a handler, and he was a decoy. We were doing a search in a lumberyard. So he got way up on top of the lumberyard, probably, 2 stories up in the air on this stack of maybe 2x10s or whatever. And again,
This is training or real?
This was training. This was training. So he fell asleep up there, and thinking that no dog could possibly get up there because he had to really manipulate. Well, another handler had a new Malinois that he just got. Everything was off lead because it was a fenced-in lumberyard. He's sleeping like this. Dog goes up there and nails him, drug him off the pallet or the lumber down to the second tier. I mean, they had to, I think they actually airlifted him. It was so bad.
Wow.
But the one story I didn't want to miss, and this is why training is so important in context and in bridging the gap. And we had mentioned leg bites before. This is important why handlers can't be so focused just on one appendage. And I know in the past, some of the organizations have frowned upon dogs biting somewhere other than the arms, but you can't avoid that because people don't always hide or have that presentation for the dog. So anyway, leg bites are important. So we would train for leg bites. So when I was working for the sheriff's department, we got a call to an apartment complex, kind of a crappy apartment complex that had hundreds of apartments and a community pool in the middle of the complex. We get there, and the deputy that was there said, yeah, there was a domestic at the pool. This guy, we got in an altercation. He tried to drown me in the pool, took off running. We've got intel that
The bad guy tried to drown the officer in the pool?
Yes.
Wow.
So we got intel, and the guy we found out after the briefing, the guy was like 6'5", 300 pounds. So we got intel that his mother lived in the apartment complex. So I was only there as a canine guy, back up, whatever, in case he was hiding or whatever. So they make contact with the mother, and there's back and forth about, we think he's in the house. You going to let us in? No, he's not in the house. Over time, they said, he's not in there. You can go in and look, or you can go in. So there were some small children that had lived there with a grandmother, apparently, and they got everybody out of the house. She said, no, he's not in there. Yeah, go in. Give the announcement, nothing. Dog goes in, goes
This is your dog?
This is my dog.
Which dog is it?
This was, I think, DJ.
Okay.
So, and I had a backup with me, a big guy, had hands like a freaking boxer. And thank goodness, again, God takes care of people, man, sometimes when you really need them. So he's with me, and we're going to look for this guy. And, another thing, when you're going on these missions, you're not, people always ask, well, you're scared. No, you're like, you have this mission and you just do it. You're not thinking about that. I've been in alligator-infested water and not even thought about it until after it's over. So,
right.
So we're going in for this guy, and he's 6, whatever, huge guy. And we go to the back bedroom, and the dog alerts to a closet in the back. Well, we open the door, and all we see is a little kid's closet. And there's dirty clothes everywhere, all over the place. And so you better come out of there. We know you're in there because the dog's working it. And sometimes dogs do alert to dirty clothes because there's a lot of human odor there. Many problems have come to me. The dog was alerting and biting dirty clothes. Of course, it's human odor. Not saying it's something you want, but it happens. So, okay, I don't think he's alerting to dirty clothes. So the dog goes in and engages the guy through the clothes. Well, the guy, we found out later, trained pit bulls in Brooklyn or somewhere in New York, and he had one of his niece's pillows wrapped and tied around his arm and was waiting for the dog to come in.
He made his own bite sleeve.
He made his own bite sleeve. So the dog goes in, engages, he starts working the dog, and we're kind of back when we go in to take care of business. He's working the dog on the pillow. Well, the pillow, I don't know if it came loose or the dog spit it. Dog goes for his leg, and then the guy is pretty much saying, okay. And we wrestle him and get him in custody. But the moral of the story is you can't just train one way all the time with one picture, with one appendage. It's important to, if you're going to go into fight in the UFC, are you going to say, well, I know a really good arm bar, and that's what I'm going to use.
That's the only thing I'm going to rely on.
Yeah, you can't. And dogs are the same way. They need those resources if they're going to do their job right.
Yeah, and I will say the times that we came to train with you, when the city came up or you came down, you always had these really, really interesting things, so simple but so effective to help get the dog to understand or transition to those leg bites, the way you would present those pictures. Still think about those things to this day, and just really, really cool. And you can't really pick that stuff up in a book. I mean, I guess you could if someone wrote it down, but experimenting, working with the environment that's there. So, and thinking like, how can we make this? Sometimes you got to figure out a way to make it safe for the decoy. And then other times you got to find a way to make it so that the dog gets presented what you want and doesn't go defaulting back to, well, I have a choice here to bite on the arm. I have a choice to bite here on the leg. I'm going to go for the arm because it's what I'm used to doing, and setting up a scenario so that you understand as the dog comes in, you don't have a choice. You can bite the leg or not get a bite, and create that frustration and get that dog to understand what we're trying to get accomplished, which again goes back to these incredible tools that you invented. Can we talk a little bit about that? Like, how did that start? Obviously, we have the situation that's now becoming incredibly apparent, which is context in the pictures and the lack of training without equipment. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, or I should say it a different way. Training always with this big giant sleeve. So you see this problem, and how do we come up with this arm and leg in situation?
Well, it came up in the beginning when dogs weren't engaging like they should. I would maybe go to a Halloween store and get one of those rubber hands, and I would attach a dowel to it, wrap it with some kind of leather device, and we'd hide, maybe in a closet. And when the dog alerted, we'd, stick the arm out and have the dog engage. So obviously,
what year is this? Like late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, probably 90s.
And again, this is before like the internet.
Yeah.
You can't just go online and order some cool product. This product literally didn't exist yet. There wasn't anything. I mean, I've heard some stories about what used to be done back in the day to get the dogs over that hump.
Yeah.
Even, nothing too crazy, but going to the supermarket and getting some flank steak and wrapping it around your arm. And then getting someone crazy enough to want to take a bite from a dog with just flank steak covering your arm. So all kinds of crazy stuff, inventive stuff. Nothing wrong with it. You're thinking outside the box, trying to get these dogs to transition from the sleeve to biting real human flesh. And then we haven't said this yet on the podcast, but I always say it's one of the most difficult things to teach, because unless you have someone ready, willing, and able to give up their real arm, we don't really know if the dog's ready for the street until we're actually in a backyard with a suspect that wants to fight the police. And you better hope all that training has what we don't know. We don't really know. And so continue.
We'll never know till we're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no matter what you do, people say, well, muzzles, you got to do this, hidden sleeves, this, that, and the other, the arm and leg. And it's all those tools. And no matter what you do, even if you use all of them, you don't know. There's genetics comes in play. There's the handler's body language and stress. So
I think people too also think like these dogs are just turnkey ready. They're just killers. And you alluded to it earlier, but there's thousands of years of conditioning saying you're man's best friend. You're not supposed to bite humans. Police dogs have to be social. They have to work in a team. They have to not bite Sandy when she comes to do the laundry. They have to be normal dogs. But we have to try to flip that switch and ask them, yes, to go from being man's best friend to, for lack of a better word, being a killer, ready to seek and destroy. And it might seem like extreme, but when we're in a fight for our life, we need those dogs to give us 110%. And I think that's where people get it a little twisted, is like police dogs just come right out of the gate, ready to just bite anything in their path. Now, there is a certain percentage of police dogs out there, and even pet dogs out there, that'll bite you just as soon as look at you. There are some of those hard-ass man-eaters, but we've also don't need that. They're a liability. They're biting backups. They're eating their own handlers. So there are some dogs that are like that. They don't need the arm and leg and product. They don't need muzzle work. They're ready out of the gate to handle business. But they're not all like that. And it's really hard to find that balance, especially now with green dogs. We think we know what we got. We've watched the dog on the field. We put it in some scenarios, and we're getting a gauge on what this dog's personality is like. But again, sometimes you just don't know until the time presents itself. And it's just to frame this conversation for those at home who don't understand what we do have to deal with in the police canine world, that, it's all fine and dandy when you get a dog that's got tremendous prey drive and will run down the field, and like you said with Rick, hit him like a ton of bricks with the sleeve on. It's again getting over that final hurdle. Very tricky to do. And your products, it's not to plug your products, it's just there's nothing else on the market that does what this does. And to be clear, it paints a picture. And maybe could you describe a little bit, at least at some point as we talk about it, we go from going to the Halloween store, getting whatever you could find, kind of making it work, shoving a dowel in it, and making this presentation to the dog. This is where you started. And then maybe talk about how things developed from there.
Sure, doing that with the dowel and the Halloween hand, it was limited. You either had to reward it to the dog or it would get torn up, but it was just kind of a beginning. Let's try something different, so we tried that. It was okay. So I said, I got to make this a little better, a little more durable, a little bit more realistic. So there was a business in Pompano Beach that did a lot of props for the movies, for television shows, for whatever, musicians, whatever. And they would make things out of rubber, a different rubber material. So I went there and said, how much would it cost for you to make me an arm with like a handle on it, whatever? And it was like a phenomenal price that I couldn't pay. I went there in uniform with a police car and a canine car. I couldn't do it. So I started walking out, and a younger guy came out following me. He goes, hey, he goes, we're expensive here. He goes, you can do this yourself. I'll show you how to do it. I don't know if he just was, like cops or like police officers, but really nice guy. I'll never forget that. Just went out of his way.
A very pivotal moment.
Yeah.
If that guy didn't approach you, these products may not exist today.
I don't think so. And I don't know where he is now, but if you're listening, thank you. But he came out and he was, a very good guy. He wanted to help people. He just wanted to do the right thing. So he says, I'll show you what to do, and you can start doing it yourself. And I'll tell you where to go, who to contact for the rubber and everything else. And he did. And I could call him up on the phone and ask him questions. So that's how it kind of started, with the actual mix of the rubber and all. And so I started doing that. It started evolving. But all I had was the arm with a stick. And it was limited. You would go in a box or a car.
And to be clear, you're making a rubber latex type.
It's not latex, but it is a rubber product.
Okay, rubber product. That's a mold of your hand, or what was the early prototype?
It was actually, the early prototype was a mold of my son's arm, who was almost a fully grown adult. So
you poured, you made your own mold.
Yeah,
pouring your own prototypes, and basically like a wiffle ball bat. Is that what you're using early on?
Yeah. And so that became to where it was limited. So I want to get something to where you can work the dog on your person. It's more like your person. You can't read the dog when you got this sticking out of a closet door.
Plus the leverage too is a little weird. It's hard to hold on to.
It was only one picture that the dog could see with it. So you couldn't work the dog. So I said, I got to get something else. So I developed what we call the G2.
That's this right here.
Yeah, that's that. So you can wear that on your arm. It straps onto your arm.
And I'll go ahead and put it on for the folks. We've used it many a time in our training. It's absolutely vital. Like if you're a police canine agency and you don't have these products, this is going to sound like an infomercial. It's not. It's just the facts. Based on, listen to the stories we've talked about, dogs continuing to fail to engage. And I'll show you a video later. Don't know if you've seen it yet. They could have done. I don't want to ruin it for you, but geez, it's like, obviously you can tell right off rip they are not using these products or anything like this. But I'll go ahead and put this on while you're describing it.
Yeah, so that straps on your arm, and some decoys want to wear like a gauntlet or something leather under it because they're a little bit concerned about the dog getting over it.
Little weenies.
Well, not necessarily, but they want to be safe. So it usually takes two people to strap it on tight. Mm-hmm. Now, I've had people say, well, it's just a third arm. We don't want the dog to see a third arm. It's not a third arm. If you present that correctly, if you put it up like this, and the dog, that's all he sees. You hide your thumb, you put your other hand. Right. This is the picture he sees. He sees an arm, not a third arm. He sees two arms.
And that's what I wanted you to talk about.
Yeah.
it's not just, strap this on, get out in the field.
No.
You're good to go.
No, I always, there's so many points I want to make, and when I try to make them, I forget
and
the other point.
I'm kind of limited here with my hands, but you can get the idea that when done correctly, we know we've done it right. When even the handler comes in and goes,
exactly.
Which arm am I supposed to bite? Which is the real arm and which is the fake arm? Which is the real leg? Which is the fake? Like, they're holding back.
Yeah.
Like, dang, I don't want to bite the wrong. There's some slick stuff you can do when done right. It's not just the tool; it's the presentation, the build-up. It's almost like a director. You got the scene, you got the lighting right.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you. First of all, I like to say one of my favorite saying is you're creating an illusion for the dog. You're creating an illusion in the dog's mind. This is a real human sitting there with no protective equipment. There's no smell of it, but at the same time, you got to create the choreograph, like you said, to make it look real. You can't present it on the agitation line or whatever. Set up how we always used it and still do when we do seminars. You're doing a search. It might be a track. It might be a building search. It might be whatever. The guy's in the bathroom sitting on the toilet with the arm and leg. It doesn't have to be arm and leg. And so I don't want anybody to think we're doing a commercial. I get it somewhere else. There's been some imitations of it. Get it there if you want. But
They're not good enough. They're not as good, I will tell you.
Whether they are or aren't, I just want...
Something's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
We could say that.
I just want you to understand the concept behind it. So you set it up to where the decoy is safe. If I'm sitting in this chair, the dog's going to come in from this direction. I'm going to be here passive. You can't set up real passive finds so much with muzzles or suits because the cues are there. The smell of the suit, the feel, the muzzle being on, the decoys. Even if I'm sitting here and the dog's coming in with a muzzle, I'm looking, I'm reacting. Here he comes. So you can sit there as long as it's choreographed. All the safety measures are in place. The dog's tethered, either with a handler or a safety officer or on a post somewhere. He can only get here. He can't get past this line. So the dog comes in. I can be as passive as I want. I have this look like you are right now. And the dog comes in and makes an engagement because I'm not complying. I might have a gun over here in this hand. I might have a knife. If the officer comes in and tries to subdue me, what am I going to do? Mm-hmm. Or whatever. So this is why these devices, again, they're not the silver bullet, but you can create a lot of realistic scenarios.
Can you talk about the importance of presenting a picture of a suspect being passive?
Well, the importance, there's so many real live situations where suspects are passive. They can be armed, and because they're showing one arm or even two doesn't mean, even if I'm doing this, officer comes in and now I'm doing this, whatever. So it's and that's the main use of the dogs. We don't want to put dogs in harm's way, but we can use them to help other people not being put in harm's way, the suspect, right. The cops, the civilians.
Well, I think there's people out there who think that maybe they've seen too many movies, that most police bites are a suspect either running away from the police or running right at the police, and they're enraged and they're very active. And yeah, that happens sometimes. But generally speaking, I don't want to put a number on it exactly, but 80, 90, 95% of the time, suspects just hiding somewhere, concealed. You can literally shine a flashlight on them and say, I'm looking at you. Please come out of the bushes. And they'll just close their eyes. Like,
yeah.
They don't see me. And now we have to send that dog in there and bite basically an inanimate object, or like the gentleman that was hiding in the closet, with the pillowcase. He wasn't moving. He's trying to stay as still as possible. Maybe the dog will miss me. And so we have to, and when we have these dogs that are 100% prey motivated and they're looking for movement, and they're not getting movement, we have to teach them it's okay to bite someone. Because it might sound to someone who's listening to this, you mean the suspect's just laying there, not moving? Why would you bite them? Like, yeah, well, they might have a gun on them, might have a knife on them. Yeah. They're just they're waiting to the last moment to strike. And so we need that dog to go in there. Especially, how about these SWAT dogs now in a SWAT standoff? And when they send a dog in first, let's say they do make that decision to do that, the guy's not going to be in the house doing jumping jacks or taunting the dog to come get him, like you might see out on the field. Hey, 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 all this fancy movement. He's going to be barricaded somewhere, hiding in a closet, position himself somewhere, maybe in an ambush type situation. And maybe the only thing that's visible is just the barrel of the gun that he's poking his head out underneath some furniture. There's thousands and millions of scenarios that could take place. But the point is, we need the dog to follow their nose to odor and just handle business, whatever may be presented. And if the subject is passive, you don't need to wait for him to move. Get on it, bite what you can bite and hold on. So hopefully that maybe clarified a little bit for the folks at home.
Yeah, I mean, I've even made some custom-made some stuff for the military because they were concerned about suicide bombers or doing what they call dead checks. You got a guy laying there, passive, could be unconscious, maybe not. And they go in, and, now he's got a suicide bomb vest on him.
Let's walk the people through that. We might have a terrorist who may be shot or maybe just pretending to be shot, but either way, he's laying there. He's got his finger on the suicide vest, and they have to get past that subject on the ground. If we can deploy a dog, even with a laser maybe, and say, I need you to see if that guy's still alive. I need you to make this thing move. Maybe you can bite him and get him to roll over so we can get a better look at what he may or may not have on him. Just trying to paint that picture for you. I've never been deployed overseas, but I can understand the concept. And so we need so describe, if you will, then we're already there. You've made we have some cool stuff here, but this isn't the full selection. There's some products that aren't even available to the general public. Can you talk about some of those things? We were just talking about it now.
I don't know whether I can or can't. I'm not, and I probably won't get into too depth because these top of the spear guys, which I'm never going to say that I've trained them or done thing or know their business. They're far more up here than I am for sure. But I have trained with them. We've done seminars where they've been there. I have spoken to some of them and have asked me, can you do this for me? It's all about making the dog better for their safety. And that's what it's all about, in my opinion, and in these products.
Well, we could suffice it to say that you've developed products that are being used, have been used, and continue to be used in top-tier units.
Yes.
Say that.
Yes. And I've had some of their trainers, and I don't even know that I would love to mention their names to give them kudos, but I don't know if it's appropriate. I don't know if they'd want
They
me
know
to.
who they are.
Yeah, and one guy in particular that I'm good friends with, but had called me and said, yeah, we had this, and again, we had this problem with this dog overseas, and he used this particular product, and I want you to know that he told me he had good success. So that's more rewarding than any dollar or anything else that I can, experience, that this was able to help somebody. It doesn't always, again. A cool little story I had. You ever watch the show Seal Dog?
No.
It's on Paramount Plus. I never watched it either because I don't watch much TV. But I met one of the stars in there, or one of the actors in there that is a dog handler in the show. So he saw me at a seminar and knows my products. He says, hey, can you make me this particular fake arm for the show? And I go, tell me what you want. I made him something, and it was really cool because I sent it to him out in L.A., and he sends me a picture. The actor that was going to play the part as a terrorist had all these really cool tattoos on his forearms. So they put the same tattoos on the arm and leg and arm that he had on his real arm and used it in the TV production of one of
That's awesome.
one of their series. I thought that was kind of cool.
That is cool.
Even though that's Hollywood. But there again, in a sense, it's kind of the same. You're creating that illusion for the dog.
If we can get the audience, human, to watch it and
Yeah.
go, wow, you really bit that guy in the arm, we can hopefully do the same for the dog, where the dog's like, well, what we're trying to paint the picture too, that because even when the dogs are first exposed sometimes to this equipment, again, there's a whole art and science to it as well. We don't just shove their head on it. We build them up, build a drive, build some anticipation. But even then, when you do everything right, the dogs oftentimes go like, is that okay? Can I do that? Did I hurt him?
Yeah.
And we have to say like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. Some dogs go in and just pile drive it.
There are exceptions to every rule,
Yeah,
of course.
and then other dogs are a little hesitant, shallow biting, not quite sure. But I can't say enough good things about this product. And while we're talking about it too, here's just another example. Can we? So you used the Gen 2s for a while, which is still your favorite. I think it's one of my favorites too. It's a great tool. It's a great tool. And some people might ask, like, oh, you bite it once, it falls apart. No, when you use these tools correctly, you can get hundreds of bites on these things. They're amazing. Of course, if you have someone that doesn't know what they're doing, or a dog that's really biting and shredding and tearing and pulling, and they don't have a clean out, you can really destroy the product pretty quickly too if you don't know what you're doing. But how long did you use these before you decided to make a different
We're
one?
still using those if we do seminars or whatever, but the one you have in your lap is the most popular one, and that was the latest version. But, oh man, I lost my train of thought again.
Well, I'll show the people while you're waiting on that. This one's neat because you call this the strong arm sleeve, right? Strongman sleeve?
SAS, strong arm sleeve.
This is an actual like bodybuilder, right? Or big guy that worked at your agency?
An actual SWAT guy, I'll give him kudos. But he was the model for that, and that's his actual arm size. But the reason why I like the G2, it's the most versatile. That one requires, a little bit more safety involved and skill, because you don't want a dog coming over the top. But
what's great about it, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because this actual guy is such a big guy, big arm, a guy like me with little chicken wing arms can fit right in. And again, it just helps you to create that illusion, you can't even see my real arm. So in other words,
well, hide your real arm and walk into the bar tonight, and
right. And I'll
impress
order
everybody.
a drink. Yeah. So just such a cool product. Can't say enough good things about it. And we've used these extensively. We'll continue to use them. And for any canine handler listening, if you're not aware of this product, you better get with the program. Been used by top tier units around the world, and used by the best police agencies. I mean, we use them all day long with the city of Miami, and I think it's become pretty much a household name as far as canine units go. But there obviously are people out there who aren't using this product, because we have the videos that can basically prove that they're not doing everything they can to set their dog up for success, and we're still having failures to engage to this day.
Yeah, I've got people all over the world actually getting them from me, military in foreign countries. But one thing I want to emphasize, as kind as you have been about this, it's not the end. You got to do so many things. It's not just this. And this stuff may not work. If you use this stuff and you're still out there stressed out and you're giving the dog commands that don't sound like the same commands you did on the training field, or you made a poor decision tactically, or you don't know your dog's limitations, you could use this every day till next year, and it's still not going to make a difference. So it's not the means to end all. It's just a tool in the toolbox. And if this tool works good for you, use it. If it doesn't work good for you, throw it in the trash, donate it to somebody, whatever. So I just want that to be clear.
Yeah.
It's not a,
Yep. Well said, and I agree with that. Yeah, just because you use this product is not going to solve all your problems, but when used correctly, it can be a game changer. Absolutely. And it's not just these products we see here that you have leg versions. You also have full body suits, if we can talk about that, that present a different picture. When we go back to getting dogs to target whatever they can, that product solves that problem. I've seen it. It's cool. We'll just say it's cool.
Well, thank you.
There's nothing that
I
that
appreciate
can
it.
replicate that. And here's just one final thing. This actually, not this exact piece, but something very similar to this, has one of our most viral videos. Some 50 million views. World's thinnest bite sleeve, which is this is the deerskin one?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So this is developed by you.
Not made by me, but developed by me.
Yeah, you told them what you wanted, and it literally is that. It's the world's thinnest bite sleeve. When put on correctly, and you put on a long sleeve shirt or not, neither the dog nor the handler can even tell you're wearing equipment, and it gives that dog, well, you describe it. What do you think the benefits of using this tool are?
Well, There's many benefits. You got to wrap it as tight as you possibly can, because when you wrap it tight, you're going to feel pressure if you use this solely. But a lot of people like to put it behind the G2 in case the dog gets over. He's not going to have punctures on your real arm. If you wrap it real tight, you're going to feel pressure. But you got to be safe. If I can borrow it for a minute,
Absolutely.
I can, rather, because I know you don't want me to get up. And so you wrap it on the arm as tight as possible, and I'll wear it the opposite way as it's supposed to go. You wrap it on the arm as tight as possible, and you choreograph everything like you had mentioned before. So the dog is coming in nice and tight, and you don't release. If the dog's ears are here and his mouth is here, that's when you want to give him that 6 inches to go in and tag this device. Before this device is ever used or that device is ever used, the dog should already have a strong foundation in full mouth bites. If he doesn't, if he's insecure on the bite, this and that is not going to work.
Very dangerous tools for the decoy.
Very dangerous for the decoy. It's going to reduce the confidence for the handler and dog as well. So this is tight. If you're using this only, you choreograph it. Make sure every safety is in place. The dog never goes beyond this. If I'm wearing it on my right, dog comes in. If the ears are here, where's he going to go? He's going to go here.
Wrist, yeah.
And I know a guy that got bit here because it was quick. The dog was quick. If the ears are here, the mouth is here, you're good to go. Yeah. You let the dog go, he gets the full mouth bite. What's unique about this is he can't use the canines or the molars to penetrate a bite suit or a sleeve, because this material is so, I guess, durable,
it's
strong.
Thin, but it's tough. Yeah,
it's kind of like
puncture-proof. Yeah.
So he has to use the muscles of his jaw to hold this, and he can't use his teeth to penetrate and hang on.
Out, yeah.
So, and they develop a much stronger bite on this. And then if the handler or the decoy wants to reward him, he simply loosens the Velcro, gives it to the dog. Yeah. If you don't want to reward him and you want to get a tactical release or an out, you can do that. The other benefit is this doesn't have the smell of jute. It does have a leather smell. In low light situations, you wrap this tight and you put this, the dog doesn't even see this. He just sees that arm. So you can be passive again, you can be sitting here, and in low light situations, it looks like the real picture that the dog would see.
And there's something, I think, too, mouthfeel wise, that has a different feeling. It's probably the closest to biting human flesh in the sense of, I mean, the rubber's one thing, but it has a different taste and smell and feel. This, I think, especially like you said, wrapped super tight, like you can feel the bone, or your bone can feel their teeth. Let me tell you, it's super cool as a decoy to feel all of that pressure from the dog. It's definitely an experience, and most decoys won't play with this. We try to get volunteers, and a lot of guys are like, I don't want to do it. I'm the first one going like, let me try that. Let me see what that's all about.
You really have to trust the handler and or the trainer. You can't do it without. I've got videos of us doing that, and it's a real trust thing. And you have somebody that's competent on both ends, you're good to go with it. And believe me, I'm not going to make a statement that the dog will never get through there, but we've used that over and over again for years and years and years. I've never had a dog actually puncture it. You wrap it the right way, you're going to feel it. Yeah. It's going to hurt. You're going to go, ah.
Yeah, you feel it.
Yeah.
It's a little adrenaline rush. If you want to get your kicks, put this on and have someone send their dog on you. No, don't do that. Safety first. But yeah, just super cool. And again, it probably sounds like an infomercial. It's not. It's just, without you, Steve, without the incidents that you've been through, the close calls that you've had, the close calls that you've seen, the failure to engage, a 30-year career, and you've put your passion into this, and now we have these incredible products that, I don't know, it's probably safe to say that this equipment has saved some lives out there because the dog's engaged and they weren't put in a predicament that you were put in, back in the day with Rick, with a dog not engaging. And even if it hasn't saved police officers' lives, this probably saved suspects' lives. Like the video I'm going to show you. In fact, we'll pause now. We'll take a break. When we come back, I'm going to show you a video. And I'm not going to say anything more than, I bet you this would have helped at some point. And someone would not have died as a result of maybe having a dog that was more prepared for the street.
And reduce injuries as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a minute. Folks, if you like what you're seeing, make sure now's the perfect time. Like, share, subscribe, support the channel. Let's get back to it. All right, we're back. And as promised, there's an incident that I want to show you on camera. Happened back April of this year. I'm not going to say where it happened, but when the cameras start rolling and what you're going to see and what the folks at home are going to see, this is after police have already responded to the area, reference a suspicious individual who's known to be armed. He already did an attempted armed carjacking, and officers just respond, locate the vehicle that he had been involved with, that he actually did an armed carjacking with, and this guy emerges from the area. I guess he was hiding literally right under their noses, and they didn't even realize he was there, and he comes walking out trying to kind of blend in. They recognize who he is, and then that's the stage. Armed carjacking subject, known to be armed, and there is several officers on scene. One of those officers is a canine officer with his German Shepherd.
Hands in your pockets, Basar. You're gonna get bit by the dog. You're gonna get bit by the dog, dude. Yeah. You're gonna get bit by the dog, dude. You're gonna get bit by the dog. That's a gun. Fast. Here. Knox, here. Knox, here. Knox, here. Dude, you're gonna get shot.
What are your thoughts, your initial thoughts?
In one word, terrible. Every which way you look at it. Where do I start?
Yeah.
I guess you can start by, once they see that he's armed or know that he's armed or someone says he's armed, I don't know that the dog would be part of the picture unless the handler felt there was a certain window to engage the dog. I don't know. Again, I don't like to comment too much. I'm going to, but I don't like to comment on too much when I don't know the behind the scenes of the history of the dog, the history of the handler, etc., the supervision. But from the get-go, the dog's not focused on the suspect. Suspect standing there like he could be somebody that just got out of his car. There's officers every which way yelling and screaming. The dog's looking here, the dog's looking there. Again, I don't know the education or the school that the handler went through, so I don't want to comment too much on that. I could probably figure it out, but the handler is apparently not realizing what's going on. The dog is not focused and directed at the suspect. Everyone's yelling. Now you have a gun in play, so regroup. Nobody's taking cover. I'm talking dog and tactical stuff. Not that I'm an expert on the tactical stuff, but and then somebody yells, "He's got a gun! Send the dog!" That just killed me. I mean, who is this person? Is it another officer? Is it a supervisor of canine? And if he said that and he had any knowledge of canine, wow, that's terrible. Not just terrible because of the guy's got a gun, but terrible because the dog was never focused. There was no way that dog was going to engage that guy from the very get-go to the end. No possible way.
And to be clear, because there's a lot happening. There's a lot of issues. But when you said there was no way that the dog was going to engage that guy, correct me if I'm wrong, you're specifically saying that specific dog was never going to engage that guy or any other person, it seems, for that matter. Because the other point alongside that parallel point is, even if we had a badass dog that could handle business, the question remains, do we send a police dog on a suicide mission to apprehend a subject with a gun? I mean, it's two separate points. Both are happening at the same time. Yeah. But I just wanted to make sure people understood what you're saying. From what you're seeing, that dog was never going to engage. which is kind of the whole crux of this conversation we've been having since we started this podcast, is about dogs failing to engage on the street.
Yeah, let's take the gun out of the equation.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Let's just focus in on the dog,
and even take the backup people yelling, which contributed to the dog's confusion and failure to focus. But the dog was never pulling like, I want to get this guy. The dog was never focused. And then the handler was a little bit confused as to what to do. Probably if I was the handler, I'd be very frustrated if he even saw that the dog wasn't focused on the right suspect. How much training did they have in that type of scenario? How much training did they have with officers yelling in the background? Never focused. And then what really killed me, and when I saw this the first time before today, is that somebody over here says, send the dog, and the handler complied with that request, order, whatever it was.
kind of got sucked in.
Yeah, kind of got sucked in. And now he's sending the dog into a building occupied with several people. The dog was never focused on the suspect. How's he supposed to know? There's nobody standing, and eventually he went into this printing shop, whatever it was. Nobody was standing in that bathroom hallway with a sleeve. He might have engaged then if there would have been somebody in the hallway with a sleeve saying, hey. But no, the dog was totally confused, not the dog's fault. It just reminded me of someone, and I don't know that this is the case, some department getting a dog and a canine handler, not sending them to a square away school, a limited school, maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks, I don't know, never educating the canine handler or his supervisors or other personnel on or on canine behavior and why the dog shouldn't be employed here and why he wasn't engaged. Just terrible. And I don't even know where the dog was in the final shots where the guy hit the ground.
It ran away.
Yeah, it's sad. Again, if I was that handler, or I saw another video recently of a handler getting frustrated, I feel bad for them. It's not, the dog's fault or their fault, and we all can empathize with them.
Absolutely.
For sure, because we've all been there.
This is not a bashing session. This is it. He was in a shitty situation.
Yeah.
With a dog that was underprepared for the street, and then being called up like, hey, send the dog. And he's like, and he was so laser focused on trying to get the dog
to focus,
to get engaged, to get in the fight, that he put himself in harm's way, not having his gun out, just really trying hard to get that dog to do what it never ended up doing anyways. And that dog had 2 to 3 opportunities to engage with the suspect, and especially in the final moments when the subject emerges from the bathroom, he all but steps on the dog, and the dog's there literally going like, where's the equipment? And then when the shots ring out, that dog said, hell no, get me out of here.
So sad. I had actually, when I saw that the first time, I wanted to call the handler and say, hey, we've all been there. Don't kill yourself over it. But why did this happen? Tell me, what kind of school did you go to? What kind of training?
And more importantly, like, how can we fix that going forward? Because I
didn't want to know because I was nosy, but how can you fix this?
Yeah, and not just fix it for him, but fix it for every other officer that works in that area, or every other police canine handler in the nation. Like, what's not working? But it's like a struggle or a battle that seems to be going on for 30, 40 years now. Because this is recent. This isn't, you've talked about these stories from the 80s when Canine Rick, not too dissimilar in the sense like you sent Rick and Rick's like, what am I doing here? That almost cost you your life. In this case, and I'm not feeling bad for the bad guy at all.
No.
But someone could argue, well, maybe if the dog did do its job and handle business first time out of the gate, target lock, and actually bite with a full mouth, with a hard grip, it could have took what ends up being a lethal encounter into a non-lethal situation. So, but we don't know. That's a huge, it could have.
No,
it could also,
likely.
you could have sent the dog could have got shot. Then they still would have had to return fire, and sometimes even the return fire kills the dog, so anything could have happened. But it's just, dang, man, and you said it a couple times, it's not the dog's fault, and I don't think that is a bad dog. I'm sure just maybe it's a young dog, definitely an inexperienced dog.
And you're going to get people that are breed orientated. Well, it's a German Shepherd. You know what? I've had German Shepherds, I've had Dutch Shepherds, and I've trained Malinois, tons of them. It's not the breed, it's the dog.
Right.
You can generalize, but it's not the breed, it's the dog. I've seen great German Shepherds. I've seen great mixes. I've seen crappy Malinois as well as good ones. So you got to look at the genetics and the breeding and the training.
Yeah. Anyways, it's just all the point I'm trying to drive home, and I think you'll agree with me, is just when we share these things and we kind of do our little Monday morning quarterbacking, it's how can we improve? How can we improve? And you started out this podcast with all the mistakes you've made that cost you dearly. And mistakes continued to happen even after that, because it's not like you just flip a switch and we're just better the next day. It took many a deployment, many a failed engagement for you to, over the years, start to develop a system, a methodology, a training mindset, if you will, so that this doesn't happen. And even when you put all of that experience to bear, all you're doing is improving the odds that the dog will engage on the street. But yes, let's continue to do everything we can to improve the odds. But there is no, like you said, silver bullet. Whether it's the products, your training styles, combining multiple different trainers with multiple different training, and bringing all of it to bear, these issues can still happen. It's just we have to do our best to hedge our bet and do the best we can so that these things hopefully don't happen. But it's tough to watch that these things continue to happen. And we're just talking with the dogs themselves, not even mentioning tactics, which is where I spend a lot of my focus, trying to get handlers to just slow down, read their dog better, use their backups, think before they act. And I think I'm positioned to talk about it because I've done all kinds of crazy, dumb Yahoo cowboy stuff. And just I'm here by luck, by pure luck. But I was like, hey, could you learn from our mistakes? Can you learn from it? Like, we can't keep doing this anymore. Times are tough. And I think that's a great segue to, we've talked all historical. Now we're coming present day. You've been retired now about 6 years. Is that correct? Yeah. So tell us about your last year or two as a police canine trainer, as a police canine officer. Why did you leave?
Good question. I think why a lot of officers are leaving today. I loved my job. I would have done it for free. I was the lead trainer of the department. Didn't have to go to many calls. I went. Wasn't working the dog as much in the last year or two because I was involved in so much training. Got to go on new canine officers. Got to go on the street with them to follow them until we knew they were squared away. So I got to see a lot of things. I loved it. Unfortunately, our society here in the United States has changed so much because of misinformation, false information, information that's not put out there, that needs to be put out there. And the country's become so obsessed with labels and race and all these things. I was an officer for 35 years. No one that I knew ever did anything because of economic status or race or favoritism or anything else. That's the experience I had in law enforcement. I was proud to be a law enforcement. I was there because I wanted to help people do the right thing, find somebody that just beat up somebody in their house and ran them hiding in the bushes. I love to find them with the dog, whether they got bit or not, just having them arrested. Society started changing because of misinformation that was put out there in the general media. The Ferguson effect, after what happened in Ferguson, the false narrative that was put out. I watched that trial, and what was put out by the media wasn't what really happened. I've been on incidents in my career where the media showed up later or was there. I've been there personally. And then I watch it on the news. I said to my wife, I go, that's not what happened. That's not even the area where this guy got found or whatever. Tons and tons of stuff like that. So after Ferguson and the false narrative, society, because of lies and misinformation, started turning against law enforcement to a degree. Some was legitimate. Some officers, screwed up. And I'm not saying that particular incident or any incident, but society started turning against officers. And when an officer had to make a quick decision on the street, whether it be canine or not canine, and someone got hurt or killed over it, the media would present it as, well, he got killed because he was selling an illegal pack of cigarettes on the street. No, he got killed because police officers asked him to put his hands behind his back, and he fought with police officers, and they had tried to get him under arrest, and that's how he wound up getting hurt or killed. But that narrative became popular in our society. And then when a police officer would be trialed by mob or by the media, what would happen? He would get sued, he would get fired, he would get reprimanded. And then the worst part of it was that he might get doxxed, and now they're targeting his family. And now they're targeting him, and he's plastered on the news on a false narrative. Nobody wants to go through that. We want to go out and do our job and help people. So the moral of the story is, in my last couple of years, officers weren't doing anything. They were doing their job and nothing more. When I first started, you got criticized if you weren't in your zone looking in alleys all night long for burglars or going out driving in the neighborhoods. Now nobody wants to get involved in anything. If I stop somebody, when I was working, if I stopped somebody for running a stop sign and they decide they're not going to show me a license, and now they're reaching for a gun and they wind up getting hurt or arrested, killed, what's the news going to say? He got killed for running the stop sign. And then society and all the YouTube and social media and the news media, they're going to go after me, the family, and everything else. So officers on the street, why should I go out there? And then they're going to get out on bond anyway. So it wasn't that they weren't doing their job. It wasn't that they didn't want to do their job. Like everybody says, oh, well, it's the defunding of police that's caused our lack of law enforcement. It ain't that. You could give me half the money that I was making, and I'd still go out there and do my job, and as much as other officers would too. We had talked earlier why you left, and it was because nobody was doing anything. And I didn't want to have a highly trained dog put blood, sweat, and tears into my training for nobody to do anything, to nobody to be proactive. And I was tired of sitting around. I was tired of putting blood, sweat, and tears into training, and nobody wanted to do anything because of the lack of support from society all the way down to our administrators. And that's the problem that we've created in the United States. I don't see it going back, because now no one wants to be a cop. Nobody wants to be in the military. Why? Because of the leadership and because of the lack of ability to do our job with substance.
Agencies nationwide are struggling to get recruits, qualified recruits.
But you watch the news. Well, it's because defunding, or because this, that, or other. But the real bottom line is it's because they don't support us anymore. Nobody does. And then not only lack of support, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but not only lack of support, but what happens to you and your family because you make a decision. And most of those decisions are correct decisions, but the way they're portrayed, it's not. So why do that?
You could be a 20-year law enforcement vet working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, right? Overtime, because we don't get paid that well. And in dealing with 10 to 20 calls a day, countless pursuits, countless arrests, and you can do everything right every second of every day that you're on the job, and it only takes one, not even wrong, just questionable incident that could happen in a split second, something that's completely out of your control, meaning someone calls 911 and tells you you have to be there, and then you're the first officer to show up, and you're met with anything. And God forbid you shoot one too many rounds, or you hesitate to shoot because you're on body camera, because you're afraid, because of maybe the color of skin of the person you're dealing with, and you have to be a little cautious of what you say, how you act, whether you put hands on them or not. Should you use lethal force? Should you try to de-escalate? Oh my God, he's coming at. Next thing you know, you're either killed, which we're seeing officers hesitate out there, getting stabbed and shot to death because they're too docile, too hesitant to take action, or just on the other side of that line, maybe a little too quick to react and maybe shoot someone that, oh, they were just pulling out a wallet or whatever. And you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. And I say it all the time, and I'll just keep saying it. Like, you have to be crazy to want to be a police officer nowadays. Why would you sign up for that job? You're not going to make millions of dollars. You're not going to get rich. You're going to live under scrutiny literally every second of every day that you're on the job, and even off the job, because you don't have freedom of speech when you're a police officer. You can't just say what you want, because what you put out on social media may or may not coincide with what your agency who hired you. So you can't just say what you want. And anyhow, you just make one wrong decision, and that could be it for you and your family.
Yeah, and then
it's a lot of pressure.
They'll use everything that's in your record in trial to persecute you or whatever. I listened to a talk show host once, and he was talking about a high-profile case that was a few years ago, and he was saying, "Oh, this guy, they should have known about this." Talking about the police officer that was in the public view as the bad guy. Right. This guy they should have taken him off the road a long time ago. He had 15 complaints, blah, blah, blah. And I actually wrote the guy that on the radio show. I said, 15 complaints. I said, let me tell you what happens in certain areas of the county or city that I work. Anytime an officer did anything, he was the person that was involved with the officer was told by community activists or civil rights attorney or defense attorneys, go make a complaint, go make a complaint, go make a complaint. Even if those complaints weren't sustained, they were in your record. So you go to trial, which I've been to trial before, and they ask you, well, what didn't you have 15 complaints against you, officer? So on this radio show that I was talking about, I heard the guy say, oh, this guy should have been fired a long time ago. He had 15 complaints about him. They should have known about his history. I wrote the guy, I said, you know what? They tell you to make complaints about an officer that you have an encounter with so that the officer gets in trouble, the officer gets it on his record, but the guy that's sitting in the donut shop drinking coffee that doesn't want to do anything, that's lazy, he's rewarded because he doesn't have any complaints in his file. He doesn't go to lawsuits. He doesn't have the risk of being involved with somebody that's confrontational or violent. This is a dilemma that we're in. I don't understand, or I don't see how it's going to go back unless people change their morality. You can't change by laws. People have to change their hearts. They have to change their hearts before they change anything else. We got to look at each other as souls, not race, not status. We're all individual souls created by God. And that's what we have to see people as, not as tribes or people groups. Mm-hmm. It's a shame we've gotten to this far. America never used to be like this.
Yeah. And people forget police officers are human too. Yep. We're not perfect. We're not robots. And I said it the other day, and I keep saying it again. Every day, officers are responding to call, life or death scenarios, and making perfect decisions. In the heat of the moment, in the worst of scenarios, like when you call 911, that's usually your worst day as a citizen. Like something's really bad in your life, whether it's a domestic situation, robbery, rape, murder, drive-by shooting. You're calling 911 when things are horrible. That's what police officers are responding to all day, every day, is your worst day. So your worst day is a police officer's every day. And we live in that whirlwind environment and making amazing decisions all day, every day. But the media is not showing those stories. You only need one officer to make one mistake out of those millions of decisions, and that's it. Well, they'll ride that till the wheels fall off. It'll be the only thing you see on the news for weeks and weeks at a time. Yep. And I will never say that all police officers are perfect 100% of the time, but I'd say we're there 99.999% of the time. It only takes that 0.001% to make a bad decision, to say the wrong thing, to do the wrong thing, and it's like, damn, we're all screwed. And then the media hones in on that, shines a light on it, and plays it on repeat, and then sells a big bucket of lies. And it's sad, but the American public eats it up.
They do.
It's sad. Not all of them, but many of them. And it's tough. Like you said, I asked the same question. When's the pendulum going to swing back the other way? I don't know if it ever will, or if it does, how far back it'll go, but it's getting pretty lawless out there on the street. The streets are getting more and more violent, while the police officers are getting softer and softer and softer. And you're 100% right. In my time, I called them heroes and zeros. The heroes are the ones out there doing God's work, hustling in between calls, trying to catch the bad guy before the bad guy even commits that armed robbery, but is driving around looking to do an armed robbery. Those are the officers that are going to get into more controls. They're going to get into more car chases. They're going to get more complaints because they're making more arrests. They're putting their hands on the most violent of violent criminals. And then you have the zeros riding the desk, taking their sweet ass time, making sure they're not the first officer responding to a scene. Milking calls, right? There's actually a term, but people might not be aware of that. Milking calls, like you milk a cow, just sit there and milk it so that you just can ride that call for as long as possible, meaning it only takes you 5 or 10 minutes to write the crash report, but that gives you another 50 plus minutes because they give you an hour to complete that call, 50 minutes to sit on your ass and do nothing, where the good cops, at least when we were supported, would immediately check back into service to handle the next call, or if there were no calls holding, get out there and handle business. I just wanted to clear the screen so that I could go out there and do work.
Yep.
But you can't do that now. You're crazy to do that. You'd be crazy. Why risk it? That's what's happening. You see, I'm telling you, this is what would happen. I'm going to be more specific. Early in my career, if you saw a vehicle go by in the wrong area at the wrong time, it looks suspicious as hell. Maybe the tag looks like maybe there ain't even a tag on it. You're like, that is probably a stolen car. That might be an armed robbery vehicle. There's some bad guys in that car. Let's go. Let's get them. Now you'll see that same. Now, technically, they haven't committed a crime, but your eye, a good officer, will see something that doesn't fit. You'll see that car go by nowadays, and you got to question yourself, like, is it worth it? Chances are that's a stolen car. There's a really good chance those could be armed robbers in the vehicle. There's a damn good chance there's drugs or guns in the car. Do I need to chase that car? No one's telling me to chase that car. Nobody else saw what I saw. You're not technically obligated. They haven't broken the law. You are profiling. If you're not profiling as a police officer, you're not a good police officer. You're saying, I'm just trying to paint the picture correct. I got to choose my words carefully here, but that car has bad guy written all over it.
Because of your experience.
Because of your background, training, experience, everything is telling you, just your spidey senses are going off going, yeah, that's probably a good car to stop. You won't get paid anymore for stopping that car. You're not going to necessarily get some hero's award. You're not going to be plastered in the news as some hero for saving the town.
Opposite.
The complete opposite is at stake.
Especially if something happens.
Yeah, so you have two options, and this is what's running through your mind. And this is where we're at. I think this is just another way of explaining what you're explaining. Old me, early in my career me, before these issues, most good cops would be on that like white on rice, like, let's go stop those bad guys. Let's stop them before they shoot someone. Let's stop them before they rob someone at gunpoint. Now you have to ask yourself, like, is the risk worth the reward? Because there really is no reward other than you knowing that you've done the right thing. But now when you go to do the right thing, now let's paint that other picture. You say, you know what, I'm going to go after this car. You go after it. You start a chase. Anything could happen in a chase. They could run someone innocent over. In fact, most police chases don't end very well. They're going to end in a horrible crash or something. Let's just say we get through that part. They just bail out. Nobody gets injured. Now, several subjects or a subject bails out of the car, holding what appears to be, could be a gun. They're reaching in their waistband. All of these little incidents can happen. And I know I'm speaking to the choir here, but for the folks listening, at any point, things can go real bad, real quick, forcing you to use your firearm. And if you don't do everything perfect by the book, you're screwed. You're going to go to jail. You're going to lose your job. You're going to be plastered on the media. And for what? You didn't have to go after that car. You didn't have to. And let me tell you, towards the end of my career, I stopped. I'd see something that didn't look right, and I'd go, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. You know what I mean? Like, we have discretion. Let me be clear about that too. We have discretion whether, let's say someone's going a little bit over the speed limit. Doesn't mean we have to pull them over. It's our discretion if we feel like we should pull them over. Or let's say two cars are racing each other and they're both going fast. We have the discretion on, well, which one are we going to try to stop? But when we see the suspicious car go by, it's suspicious. It's nothing more than that. We don't have to stop them, but a good cop would and should. Nowadays, the good cops are choosing maybe the option 2, which is, I didn't see that. No, y'all go about your day. Now, if you go ahead and commit a robbery and 911 is called, okay, then I'll respond. But it's too late then. And then how fast you respond to that scene too. No one says you have to go as fast as hell to get there and be the first one there. Us hungrier cops, the heroes, were racing to get there, not for ego, but just for the action, for the excitement to catch the bad guy. And now it's who's always the last one to get there? The zeros. Like, where the hell were you? Why are you always the last person to show up to a scene? And this is where we're at. So be careful what you wish for. I just keep saying it again and again. Whether it's defund the police or deback the police, when you start calling 911, like, response times are going to be less and less. When you have a problem in your neighborhood with suspicious individuals, like, don't expect now the police officers to go out of their way to challenge those individuals, because every time they get out of the car to do that, they put their lives on the line, they put their career on the line, and it's when they're not feeling supported or when they're afraid of making those decisions, making those encounters, you're going to have that softer, kinder, gentler policing, which is just leaving this big vacuum for bad guys to just crime to just take over. And that's what we're seeing today. I'm just trying to summarize it and paint the picture in so many different ways. This is where we're at. And it's a very scary place to be.
Sad.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I said a lot there, and I'm not putting words at all in your mouth, but this is a little bit of why you ended up leaving, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of why I wound up leaving. It was just frustration that we can't go out there and do what the good people or the law-abiding citizens want us to do. And as a canine officer, you had to rely most of the time on other officers initiating something, or bail out of a chase, or burglary, where they get there quick, like you were describing in the old days. You'd go, and then they might catch the guy coming out of the window, or they might catch the car leaving the scene. It wasn't happening. Nobody wanted to work. Nobody wanted to do anything. I understand that. And people say, well, then they should go get another job, or they should do this, or they shouldn't have got into police work. They didn't get into police work to have it like it is today in our society. And as far as getting another job, there's still certain aspects of it that they still can make a difference and want to make a difference. But overall, the big picture of it all has really declined. And again, I go back to, I don't believe it's because of defunding. I used to love it when I was the only one working in the West section before I was even in canine, because I can go out there and do my job, and I don't have to bother anybody else. But it's changed so dramatically that nobody was doing anything. I was getting frustrated. Frustrated is probably the biggest word in my vocabulary that describes the whole picture of how police work was in Broward County when I decided to retire, because it was affecting all aspects, especially canine, because the work was not as prevalent as it used to be. And as I said earlier, why go out there and put blood, sweat, and tears into training and tactics and everything else, and you do nothing. You sit at your trainer's desk. BS.
Yeah. Well, here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Well, I think even though we're ending on kind of a not pleasant note, there's a certain quote that you wanted to leave us with.
Well, we were talking about trainers and getting things accomplished, and you're doing a great job with the programs that you do, and there's many, many great trainers out there and good trainers, but what frustrates me is so many people wanting to be in the action and not really knowing how to handle problem solving in dog training. And there's a great quote that I always like is by a woman by the name of Sheila Booth that wrote a book on positive training. It was a dog training book, but she says, good trainers fix problems. Great trainers never have problems. And that doesn't mean that anybody's a great trainer, but to me that says great trainers start from the beginning and look at the end and go meticulously step by step. Good trainers will get the job done. They'll get a dog that's going to go out there like Rick or whatever on the street, but great trainers go easy, A, B, C, D, and don't go to one thing before they address the previous problem or the previous behavioral accomplishment that they wanted to do. So I've always loved that verse because it makes you sit back and think, you got to do this right. You got to be meticulous about training.
Yeah, I haven't heard that quote before until you told it to me earlier today, and it made me think a lot about, and again, this is not as cool because we're not talking about tactics and police dogs, but I so much prefer when we get an 8-week-old puppy that has a clean slate, there's no problems, and we train that dog, we say from 0 to hero, right? Avoiding problems all along the way, versus when now we have a dog that either has had no training, developed a lot of problems, or went to a less than desirable trainer, and then comes to us. It's older, it's got bad habits already baked in, and now we're spending so much time trying to fix problems that shouldn't have been there to begin with. And that's what that quote kind of meant to me, is like, if we could just do it right from the beginning, I so much prefer that than trying to go back and fix problems that you created because of lack of attention to detail or not kind of seeing the bigger picture, just kind of half-assing it. And the other way it could be said too is kind of setting dogs up for success, so that you have wins. Because if you rush it, always, and I am really not a patient person, but dog training has made me become patient. You have to, because if you try to rush it, you usually screw it up, and then you'll be paying for it for a long time. And it'll actually take you longer to fix the screw up than had you just done it right from the beginning and took your time. So great quote. That one's going to stick with me for a bit.
Another one is quality, not quantity. You watched, I had a trainer call me and said, hey, this is my first school. Can you come out and, watch or make sure we're doing everything right? And you got to end on a positive note. It's not about putting 20 minutes into obedience. It's about, let's say the dog is weak on left turns. You're trying to get him to heel right by your side, looking up, whatever your accomplishment is. And he's weak on left turns. And you finally get a left turn, and you might have put 30 seconds into the training. Boom, he gets his reward, and it ends. What's that going to do to that dog? Man, now I know, and over repetition. But these guys want to do sits, and then in the same session, they want to do downs. Isolate everything. Get each isolated exercise right. End it when the dog is making accomplishments, and end it at that. But everybody wants to push it. So quality, not quantity.
Well said. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. I cannot thank you enough, Steve, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you still travel the country. You're still teaching seminars. And for you to come all the way up here and, share your wisdom, your knowledge, and the mistakes you've made along the way, like, all we can hope to do is learn from it. And I really do hope folks listen to this and learn from it. Take a big bite of humble pie, and just open up your eyes and ears, learn from folks like Steve, and so that we can, so if at minimum, I usually say, I joke, so you don't end up on our podcast or on one of our review videos, at the minimum, have that in the back of your mind. Like, man, I don't want to end up I don't want my dog to have a failure to deploy. I'll end up on Garret's podcast. It's just a joke, but yeah, please, more for yourself and for your loved ones. Train harder, train smarter, seek outside trainers. A lot of people are just in their own bubble and they're afraid to get out and they're afraid to get criticized. You got to do it. If you don't get outside of your bubble, you're not going to access great information, education, and training folks that like Steve Sprouse can bring to the table. And anyways, that's where I'd like to end it. But Steve, thank you so much again for coming on. And we hope to have you back for round 2. And I want to thank all the folks who took time out of their day to watch and listen to this podcast. Really appreciate you coming on. We have a lot more amazing guests coming on. And make sure to like, share, subscribe. Again, share this with folks that you know, especially in the law enforcement community. I think they'll get a lot out of it. So thanks again. We'll see you on the next one.